Round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H EEW season, Le Mans, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Azatec, Global Flix, Film Vault, ESTV, and Motorvision.tv.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on. Alex, we need to throw first.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren, and a very warm welcome to the first free practice session of round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H Endurance E-Racing World Championship. We're at the place where legends are born. 2 words says it all. Le Mans. My name's Alex Goldschmidt. Alongside me, David Christie and Yusuf bin Sahel, and we are broadcasting for the first time this season, and actually the first time in 12 months, from our studios here in Denmark. Gentlemen, a very good evening.
Oh, well, hello there, Alex. It's fantastic to be here. I mean, season finale, Le Mans, what a season it's been. So excited. There's so much in store. This is a track that makes legends in real life. This week, it's going to make legends in SimWorld.
Yes, indeed, 2 real-life legends. Mr. Le Mans himself, there's 2 of them, actually. First one, Jackie X, 6 times a Le Mans winner. And then, of course, Denmark's very own Tom Christensen, has won it a gargantuan 9 times. Yusuf, we've been to 5 tracks so far this season. Indianapolis, Silverstone, Sebring, Nürburgring, Spa-Francorchamps, and here at Le Mans is where it all comes down to the line, isn't it, in the championship?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been saying it in every single one of our post-race reviews. I love the season that we've had so far, a great mixture of tracks, and I think one of the most exciting things coming into this round isn't the fact that every single category is closed, it's the fact that you've got a few categories where there's a bit of a point discrepancy, and it means that there is a chance for that upset, and it can breathe some life into this final round of the season.
David, coming on to the 4 categories we have. The Cadillac DPI, we have LMP2, contested by both Erika and Ligier, GTE and GT3. It's been an absolute nail-biter, especially when DPI came in and replaced the hypercar side of things for actually the Nürburgring at round 4. This championship has really kept us all on tenterhooks, hasn't it?
It really has, and for so many different reasons. For example, with the DPIs and the LMP2s, there's supposed to be this clear difference between the two, and yet through the season, because of our newcomers coming in at Nürburgring with Satellite Racing, the two of them have absolutely been going for it toe to toe. And then you look at the GTEs. Thankfully, they're a little bit more separated than the GT3s, but yeah, everybody has been just really duking it out through the season, and there's never really been a clear a clear leader through the GTEs and the GT3s.
Yusuf, coming into the championship standings, let's firstly take a look at DPI. Now, firstly, we have to give a shout out to our new podcast talk show host who will be joining us here tomorrow, Mr. Kieran McGinley. Had a very fantastic interview with one of the new signings, Henry Sinek, the Estonian, who is an absolute leviathan. He is completely ruthless. We got a great insight into the man behind the racer. He's one of those drivers that we really have to watch out for. Well, I'm going to take you way back to the beginning of the season. Hypercar, Pin Sim Drillers Esports. It was was it Martin Hemmingson or was it Henry Sinek that took it over the wall? The car came back out on the track, and between Hemmingson and Sinek, they absolutely made mincemeat of the field.
Well, you say going back to the start of the season. I'm going to go back to next year, or to last year, because Henry Sinek was on absolute fire. This guy has been such a monster in endurance racing, at least in the Endurance E-Racing World Championship, and I'm sure in various other series that he's racing in.
Yeah.
But the man is just a monster, and we've been seeing it this season. Martin Hemmingson and Henry Sinek, when they were in the Pin Sim Drillers, in the hypercar, absolutely at the top of their game. So much pace. And now moving into the satellite racing car with a DPI, having, well, few less races in the season, with the championship for DPI only starting at the Nürburgring. 3 rounds, they're already making headway. They're already 14 points clear of the sister team Satellite Racing. And to be honest, they see themselves winning this championship, and there's no reason that they shouldn't.
Completely the case. I mean, David, you look at it from this perspective. We've had 4 teams compete in DPI. So we've got the sister car, the 65, that is currently 14 points adrift on 39. We know that it's double points, which means it's ever more anticipated what's going to happen over the course of the next few days. Team Viaductum, we know that team very well through previous years of GTR24H. And then the newcomers from Malaysia, Axel Sports, founded by the legend Malay driver that is Mr. Alex Young, that myself and Yusuf had that fantastic interview. And of all places, Alex Young decided to be in a bar in Malaysia whilst we were doing the interview.
He's a busy man.
He is a very busy man. I mean, what was it? He'd just been out for a day of karting, and he just said, I haven't got the love for karting. I just love the competition. And that's what we're going to see in DPI, aren't we?
It absolutely is. And the thing is going back briefly to the number 64 Satellite Racing team, they come into this week with so much pressure on their shoulders, you know, starting off and debuting halfway through the season at Nürburgring, pole position, taking the race win, taking a win at Spa as well, and then they come into Le Mans. They are, you know, the odds are in their favour, but that also works against them because all of the other teams now have nothing else to lose. They can just absolutely go for this race. And Alex, me and you have been around the block enough to know that Le Mans picks its winners. It doesn't matter how hot a favourite you are, it all goes down to how much luck you have on your favour on the day.
And as a fellow countryman, a man who's also won at Le Mans, Alan Manish said that you do a full Formula One season in an adventure twice around the clock. Yusuf, we have some new developments in DPI. we welcome back Team Rookie Monsters.
I'm so looking forward to seeing them out on the track. I'm so looking forward to welcoming some old stays from EEWC 2020 back into the league. And I think it's also going to be very entertaining to see how this affects the DPI class, because, to be honest, coming into this, and I said this in the post-show after Spa, I don't think the exciting part as a viewer of watching DPI is thinking who's going to win the championship. For me, I personally think Satellite Racing have that in the bag, unless they have some absolute monstrous failures. For me, it's a battle for third, because I think Viaducted have been a little under par, and Axel Sports have shown that they have the pace. So with the likes of our Omicron, Team Rookie Monsters, the other Satellite Racing car, there's a huge opportunity for Axel Sports to be able to steal that third place away.
Davey, we now turn our attention to LMP2. Varga Sim Racing have been the dominant tour de force in this championship. 101 points. However, we didn't see them last time out at Spa. This has now closed everything up a little bit because we've got the pairing of Juices Motorsport, Mugen Sim Racing now. I've had a lot of conversations with Nick Newcomb, team boss at Juices, and he says that, very interestingly, that the LMP2s are going to be possibly on pace, maybe slightly quicker than the hypercars, like the DPIs. But then Mugen Sim Racing, Adam Surej is managing two teams, and they're both in contention for titles this season. You know, anyone, I mean, even Ramada Motorsport in fourth position in the number 57, they're on 62 points, and that's 39 adrift. They still have a mathematical chance of winning, and they could put, you know, the frighteners on everybody.
And that's all you need. That's all you need going into the final race of the season, is just to have that slight chance. Doesn't matter if it's an outside chance, doesn't matter if it's the remotest of remote chances. That's all you want to keep it going, because your season's still alive. The win of the championship could still go on. And ironically, just as we start talking about LMP2, we see the number 15 Juices Motorsport sideways halfway around the circuit there. But look, I think this is actually even wider in terms of the scoring than the DPI. You know, you've got, what's that, 27 points between the top three cars, and then second and third are tied completely. The problem with that is that they're not only fighting the lead car of Varga Sim Racing, but they're also fighting each other as well.
Yeah, very much the case. I mean, Yusuf, going to come to you now. Varga were not at Spa. I haven't seen them in the server tonight for the moment for this free practice session. Could it be that we are going to have no Varga, we're going to have a straight-up dogfight for the title? I'm sorry to put you on the spot there, but I'd rather ask you the question.
It's a valid question. I'm going to throw your mind back to the wonderful interview that Kieran McGinley did with Henry Sinek, where Henry Sinek talked about, and he was rather ruthless in this fact, but he talked about how he thought the competition just wondering, maybe Varga Sim Racing feel the same way, and they say, you know what, we're going to handicap ourselves. And, you know, I'm ever the lover of controversy. Maybe they're saying, you know what, we don't need to race at Spa, we don't even need to qualify, we're going to give ourselves a challenge for Le Mans.
Top gear from the rear, in other words, effectively. We're going to go on to GTE. Now, I'm having a look at the number 53 of Musto GD Esports. The big beast, as it's normally called. You know, we see those big memes, you know, going through Le Mans, and you see a little Aston Martin, and all of a sudden everyone expands the beamer, and it's like this big, like, monster on steroids just behind. The number 53 has had a real good run of luck. They had a win at Silverstone, a win at the Nürburgring, a win at Spa. That's 3 wins this season. However, WOSR, iZone Performance, the Spanish team running in the Porsche 991 RSAR, you remember when they had that massive off at Silverstone? Yep. Whacked the barriers coming down the hangar straight. They've kept themselves pretty much in contention. You know, they've taken a win at Sebring, a second at the Nürburgring, they took third at Spa, and they're within 13 points. Then you look a little bit further back, DIS SR Lab. the sister car, the 54, which had dramas. Now, which race was it? Was it Indianapolis, where we had one of the Musto cars? They had a 3-lap penalty for resetting, got put onto slicks on a wet pit lane, went to leave, the rear axle spooled up and sent them into the path of another car and really curtailed the system. Do you think a team game might come into play between the Musto cars this weekend?
Absolutely. If you've got two teams and you're battling against a team of the quality of WOSR, you absolutely have to start playing the team game. And this is a rivalry between Musto and WOSR that actually started last year when Musto took the GTE title, and I'll be honest, they were the only team in the GTE class. But come the final round in Le Mans, that's when WOSR made their entry. And they actually beat Musto in that final round of the season. And now heading here into Le Mans this year, double points on the cards. WSR win, they've pretty much got the title. And this is, for me, the first of our 4 classes where I honestly feel we have a battle for the championship. Sure, in the other classes there's a mathematical possibility, but there's only really a chance if mechanical failures come into play, whereas this, I feel, is a straight-up a dogfight, a pure battle of performance where both teams have to push to the absolute limit.
And with the top 4 teams in GTE covered by 38 points, David, this is going to go down to the wire. We're not going to find out until the checkered flag flies at 2 p.m. And this is where it gets interesting, because we wind the clocks an hour back, don't we? So we start at 3 p.m. on Saturday, we finish at 2 p.m. Sunday. Everyone's going to be wringing the living necks out of these cars over 24 hours, and mechanical sympathy here at Le Mans is a key factor.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. I just want to roll back to what Yusuf was saying there, actually, about the team orders for Musto GD Esports. I think if they're smart, if they're playing as a proper team, that's absolutely the way they have to go with it, given that the 53 is in the prime position, it's in the lead of the championship. The 54 has to play rear gunner, it has to support as much as it can. However, if it's the point that the 54 is outscoring that 53, which I hope hopefully is not going to happen, as we see the 54 doing a pirouette there, the 54 then takes charge, because the 54 can still potentially win this championship. Obviously it's a massive outside chance, but the 53 gets first dibs, as it is with the championship. So hopefully that's how it's going to play out. But as you said, I think this is the first one that we've seen where there is a proper ding-dong battle going on with WOSR Eyes on Performance. They really are within a shot. But again, it comes back to, like we were saying with the DPIs, they come into this weekend, they've on such a high. They won at Nürburgring, they won at Spa. They come in with their backs up and their heads held high on that one. But again, that could cost them, because again, they come in with all that energy. They've got to try and back that up. With what you were saying, Alex, going right to the wire, mechanical sympathy is so huge in this sim. R Factor 2 is well known for being one of the only sims that properly represents mechanical damage over such a long stint of time. So they have to look after both the tyres, both the engine, both the mechanics of the car, but also the drivers as well. The drivers is such a huge thing, and it's something I don't think we talk about enough, just how draining these events are, especially with some drivers taking part in VR. They really do have to look after themselves.
And I just want to jump in with some potential strategies that I feel could be absolutely pivotal for Musto, especially the 54 car, because they aren't slow. They picked up a pole in Silverstone, and if they can match that pace and get pole, all of a sudden the 53 car slots in behind, gets slipstream all the way down the Mulsanne straight. Instead of doing 13 laps on a stint, maybe they can do 14, stretch out that one lap further, and that could be the difference at the end of the day.
Lift and coast is going to be rather crucial. I mean, we're going to be keeping a keen eye on every single one of the four classes. Yusuf, final class, GT3. Unison Racing have effectively, at this moment, been pretty much the belle of the ball. 3 victories: Indianapolis, Silverstone, last time out at Spa. They took a third at Sebring, and a second at the Nürburgring, which was literally shortly after our one-off event, the 24 hours of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which, funny enough, one of the winning drivers was on the same team that won it for 2 years on the bounce, Jone Simoncic from Burst Esports. But they're not out of the woods yet here at Le Mans.
And the interesting thing is, so far this season, it has been a unison show.
Yeah.
But they don't feel out and out a completely next level team. Not like Varga in the LMP2 class for me anyway, because Glam Racing have been slowly getting better and better, just getting that little higher every race. And last time they picked up a second, and we were talking, maybe they can go one better here at Le Mans, pick up a win. And then you got Mugen as well. They could also be on that podium pipping Unison, and all of a sudden, Unison losing a whole bunch of points.
I think also we have to look back at what happened to Mugen. Zolt Pribek was behind the wheel. We had the accidental double downshift, blew the drivetrain, gearbox, engine, and they missed out on opening their winning scores this season. And it took them until the Nürburgring to do so. And when I spoke with Adam Surej, he said, that was a very disappointing start to the season. But, Adam Surej is managing 3 teams. 2 in this championship, as I alluded to earlier, coming into this round. He's not only got a lot on his plate as the team manager, he's also driving. That's going to be double the impact in terms of mental and physical stress. And also, he doesn't want to overexert himself. And that comes on to what David was saying earlier on, that you've got to be hydrated. You've got to be mentally prepared. You've got to know that you've got to react on a sixpence if something goes wrong, if you have damage on the car, you have an unforeseen puncture through contact, or even going over the curbs, like, say, coming out of Arnage, going through into Indianapolis. Those are 2 key points on the circuit where we've seen it in both virtual and real life, where you get that braking zone wrong, you are either off into the gravel or you're hard into the barriers.
Absolutely. The thing is that it's a double-edged sword on that one in terms of their team manager. Some would say that you want somebody that is disconnected, that is completely fresh and has a complete different focus from the race drivers, that can not be emotionally affected by anything that's happening on track and has a clear vision of what is expected. Whereas on the other hand, there's a lot saying for somebody behind the wheel that actually or making the calls on the strategy, that knows what the car is feeling like, knows what the drivers are experiencing in terms of, can we eke out an extra couple of laps by lifting and coasting, can we do this? It does give them a better understanding. But also, I would say that it adds unnecessary pressure, because especially if you're managing multiple teams and, say, behind the wheel of a car as well yourself, that is, everybody has their mental limit, unless they've got some mad spreadsheet going on with all these different permutations and all
we've
that
got some
of
of our own going.
Yeah, we've got about 15,000
we're going to be
computers.
put through the ringer too here in the commentary box.
But everybody has their limit, Alex, and it's finding that. And the thing is, if he's comfortable doing that and he can absolutely do that to the best of his ability, all on you go, because I certainly couldn't do that. I struggled just to be able to drive in a straight line for more than an hour. But if he can do that, manage his team, get them to the best possible position, that's what works for them. I
think also, Yusuf, we come on to the rest of the teams behind the 2 main championship protagonists. One Move Esport in the 26 Ferrari. Glam Racing have really come on strong. I had a really good chat with Callum Wilson. Callum's been dabbling in touring cars with the VMOTC UK Championship running in a BMW, and it's really helped sharpen his skill set. But with Maria and the team at Glam, they have really done so well this season. They've got 3/4 in the first 3 rounds of the season. Nürburgring was the 3rd. They got the run-up spot. Surely a win might be on the cards, touch wood, at Le Mans.
And when you look at Glam Racing, they've been doing everything right in the sense that they've been slowly growing as a team, getting quicker and quicker. And whether that's a fact of the drivers getting used to maybe Callum Wilson's setup, or it could be a number of things. Maybe them just finding a good setup. It does look like they are very, very close to being able to pick up the win. And I think one good thing that we've been seeing from Glam Racing so far this season is they're incredibly consistent. They don't make many mistakes. They don't overdrive the car. And here at Le Mans, those are very critical conditions to be able to tick if you want to be able to pick up a win.
And this track, 13.626 kilometers. You know, we're going to see some pretty quick lap times. I'm actually looking from the driver view of Unison Racing down the Mulsanne, heading towards the second Hunaudière, the second chicane, braking from about 280 kilometers an hour in sixth gear down to third. And whilst they're going over the curbs, David, you know, traffic is going to be key, especially during the night. If you get through the night, you get to happy hour when the sun starts to rise, you know that you've broken the back of the race, but you still have to push that little bit harder to get to the checkered flag.
It's how do we describe this? Le Mans at night. The thing is that it is pure unadulterated adrenaline for the drivers, because it's pitch black. You've obviously got the some of the trackside lighting and things like that. You've got the lights of the cars around you, but your eyes are on stocks. Your adrenaline glands are just constantly pumping for the amount of time you're doing your stint. And you've got LMP2 cars, you've got DPI cars, you've got GT3 cars, you've got GTE cars. Whatever class you're in, you're going to have at least several cars coming flying by. And there is no word for how that feels at night time. It is an incredible, incredible experience. In fact, for a lot of these drivers, it's actually their favourite part of the stint, for myself included. I absolutely hate racing at night. My night vision is not the greatest.
Well, we're not going to go into 2019 and you at Silverstone.
We'll leave that. But it's an intimidating experience, and we've spoken very briefly about the physical toll and the mental toll for drivers. The nighttime stint, I would say, is the hardest part for a lot of the drivers, and it's also the most rewarding because it's the toughest part for a driver to actually do. And they get out of that car, they're absolutely buzzing, but they likely have to have more time to recover if they're not accustomed to doing that.
Yeah, we've also got a new addition to the GT3 crew for the Le Mans finale and for 2022. Yusuf had the chance to speak to Valdemar Eriksson from Aztec Simsport, they brought the brand with the four rings along for the party. The Audi R8 makes its debut this season. Great to have that car on the grid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about time we saw an Audi on the grid. I'm trying to remember the last time we saw one, because I don't think we had one in 2020. So, again, this is another team that could potentially throw a spanner in the work for Unison Racing. We'll see what they have available to them. To touch back on what David was saying, I think we might be able to experience what the sim drivers are in the nighttime sim. We've got some nice energy drinks that have been very kindly provided by Nocco, and I think that might have our eyes on stalks potentially.
Well, people might be wondering, hang on, these are quite lovely new shirts we're wearing. A big thank you to Sten Golson for these fantastic Eton shirts. I mean, guys, they're really comfortable, aren't they?
I'm not gonna lie, you are not getting this back. This is mine.
Sorry guys, I'm running.
Yeah, this is seriously. This is. I've worn quite a lot of shirts before, and this is probably the nicest thing I've ever worn. That's.
Oh my God!
I know, right?
Are you blushing?
Yeah. I think it's more shame that that's actually a true statement. No, they are fantastic. They're so comfortable, really, really light, and really enjoy them.
No, I was mentioning to David as well, as I hear the advert music, so I don't think we're in an advert though.
It's fine.
We're still on screen, but I was mentioning to David when I was unpacking it, I thought, this feels kind of dirty. It feels too good for me. I don't deserve.
He did actually say that.
It's a shame I didn't witness that, really.
I'm kind of glad you didn't, to be honest.
You're just having a moment.
You've got enough ammunition against me already.
the funny thing is, we've been doing vlogs all the way through, starting from this morning. We've had a very, very long day, but, you know, one of the biggest things, guys, you know, we've been sat at home for pretty much the whole season, and to finally be here in the studios at GTR24H HQ in Denmark, I think it all really sank in where we got through airport security, chilled out, got on the flight, met up with Peter and John finally. Had some fantastic pizza as well, I might add. It's just been, you know, we might have been up since the crack of dawn, or before the crack of dawn. But here we are. The adrenaline, it's a completely different energy now that we're able to see each other face to face rather than being on the other side of a webcam.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, so far I've been seeing more of the back of David's head in these conversations than his face. But no, it's absolutely the case. And, you know, throughout the entire flight here, we were talking about how for some of us, it was hitting at different moments.
Yeah.
I think for David, it was when you kind of landed in England from Scotland before you transitioned to Denmark. For Alex, it's probably been for a month or so. He's been excited like an 8-year-old girl.
I think it's probably from when I got a particular message from Nick Newcomb late last September saying, was I available for last year's finale for Le Mans? I said no. I was away in Italy that week.
This is when Alex didn't like me. Now he likes me.
I didn't even know you then. God, making judgment calls.
From my point of view on that one, for me it got real as soon as the touchdown and we got off the airport in Denmark and we stepped outside. And even, you know, last night meeting you guys and Alex, we've met a couple of times before. Yusuf meeting yourself for the first time, and then coming here and meeting John and Peter. And it suddenly became such a wonderful thing. Listen, we've all had such a terrible past 18 months.
Yeah.
We've all been in this together, and just for us all to be sitting here and being able to bring this to you guys at home, it's such a privilege, and it's such a nice experience to be here in this wonderful studio that we've put so much collective hard work. Yeah, it's collective hard work into.
Yeah.
And here we are.
You know what the coolest thing is as well?
Go on.
Next year is going to be land. We're going to have all. We're going to be here, and we're going to have all of the drivers around us. Their gazebos, their sim rigs. We can go blow next to their ear and put them off in a race, make the championship more exciting.
See,
he's already planning stuff already. We haven't even got there yet.
I've got to jump in for a second because I'm a proper old school guy here.
Yeah.
So I've been to LAN parties back in the day, and obviously nothing like that will ever compare to what we're about to witness next year here. But yeah, the thought of having so many drivers, sim racers in one location, we're going to be there. It's just, you know, when you see the Nürburgring 24 Hours and you see that party track site, that's what I imagine it's going to be like next year at the
like the sausages on the barbecue, the beers flowing.
That's just at the commentator desk. We've got a little barbecue going behind.
Yeah, well, I can smell that from here. Well, really, we've got through the first half hour of this broadcast pretty quickly, so we're going to go to a brief commercial break. We'll be back very shortly.
Round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H EEW season, Le Mans, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by
You enjoy
Patriots,
that, Peter?
Azatec, Global Flicks, Film Vault, ESTV, and Motorvision.tv.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor, or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
So, the Marseillaise brings us back to just after our commercial break. A big thank you to all our partners and sponsors here at GTR24H, the likes of Azatec, Viper Gaming by Patriot, the carbs company Noco that have been supplying us with these fantastic Focus and Limon des Sol drinks for this over the course of the weekend. Global Flicks, Film Vault Limited, Esports Television Network, Motovision TV, Sten Goldman with regards to these lovely Eton shirts. A big thank you to you all. It's really good to have them on board. And I have to give Kieran McGinley a shout out. He's on the flight tomorrow morning. Kieran, we're looking forward to having you with us. We're going to do a Le Mans preview podcast talk special. But also, we have a little bit of news because we're going to be doing a EEWC Round 6 Le Mans official press conference. It's going to be part of official practice 1. So we're going to start things off at 8 o'clock, Central European Summertime. And then at 8:30, we're going to bring the team bosses in. And you know what? That's really going to give us a true feel. We've spoken to so many people over the course of the past few months. Yusuf, that really is going to bring another dynamic to this championship and also to this Blu-ray band events here at Le Mans.
I think it's really cool that we're actually getting this kind of press conference to get an insight into what the team managers are really thinking coming into this season finale round. And also want to mention, shout out to Ewan O'Leary as well, doing some fantastic articles on the GTR24H website. But something else to mention is we have some additional content as well coming everyone's way, which I think we'll not divulge just yet, but make sure to stay tuned on the GTR24H socials because we have some really cool stuff coming.
Don't forget, you can also go to our official website, GTR24H.org. David, I really cannot get over... I mean, we're going to have a bit of banter over the next half an hour. I mean, and then we're going to really go into this session into a bit more detail. Have you ever been to Le Mans?
No, it's a really weird one, right? So obviously, my real life commentating good buddy Duncan Vincent works there in the pit lane, and quite honestly, Le Mans was a track that never really took my fancy, and I got chastised quite a lot for it for good reason. And then obviously I started watching the races that happened there, and about 3, 4, 5 years later, late to the party. Finally, I get it. I get why the track is so special. I get why the race is so special. It is just like nothing else there is on this planet. The challenge, the thrills, the spills, the dedication that it takes, not just from the drivers, and very quickly we need to talk about that, the amount of people involved behind the scenes on this for these teams, getting these cars set up week in, week out, is a phenomenal amount of preparation that goes in. But yes, not been to Le Mans, need to go there, and I think it's going to be a great visit.
I'm going to really pretty much answer this question, I think, for both you and me. I've never been to Le Mans. You never have.
I've never been to a track outside of the UK.
We've got to change that next
Road
season.
trip.
Feel free to take me out.
Is that an invitation on a date?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call it that, but if you want to put it in that way.
Well, I mean, the banter's well and truly alive here this evening. I mean,
what we need to do is we need to open it up to chat. We need to let them decide what track we should.
They're going to see
visit.
Monaco, though.
Monaco,
Well,
really?
Yeah, they're going to want to see the GTR24H lads touring around on the Monaco streets.
I've actually got a really funny story about Monaco. So a couple of years ago, I was a very, very thrifty person, and was.
So not much has changed.
Wow. I was going to make a joke about me being Scottish, but I think that kind of goes with it, doesn't it? But I had this idea, right, of doing a YouTube channel about trying to go racetrack circuits around the world for like as little money as possible, to prove that like anybody could
it's
go,
affordable,
right?
Yeah.
And what I'd found is that you could get a bus from Edinburgh to. It was somewhere in France, and then you could get the train from that place in France to just outside Monaco, and it's literally like a 15-minute walk from there. So you could get there, and I think grand total for the return, it cost £22.80 for the whole lot.
You want to know something else? We're here at Le Mans.
Exactly.
Virtually. I don't know if it's as good.
well,
but
actually, well, it's sort of a 50-50, because this year I ended up going to the International Trophy at the Le Mans Karting International Circuit. So I was literally on the doorstep. No. The funny thing was, I didn't realise I was going over there for some work detail, and then I get asked to commentate. Then all of a sudden, we've got the supercars running around, coming through the Ford chicane, through the Porsche curves, and I'm thinking... But when I say Le Mans, it's actually being there at a race weekend. So mine doesn't really qualify, does it?
I don't know. If you go for a track day, I feel like you've been to Le Mans. Maybe not.
It's a difficult one. I think there's a difference of being to the circuit and actually being to like the race weekend. I think what we're wanting is to be there for a race weekend.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen, boys. Let's get the time off together. All of us, the entire, including the production team, will all just head off.
Yeah. Big thumbs up from Peter
that's
Muncombe,
obviously
the whiz
happening.
behind everything. And also,
You know how Peter's car on the bumper, it's got a Nürburgring sticker.
Well, I
we
was
can
going
add
to
a
say,
Le Mans
guys,
sticker to it now.
just please, Nürburgring 24. You do that. Top job.
Well, when you think about it, you'd be part of the 300,000 people actually at that circuit.
Yeah.
You know, the Nürburgring Nordschleife, over 20 kilometres in length, over the best part of 150 corners.
Yeah.
But Le Mans is pretty much on anyone's bucket list to go and visit, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, and for good reason. It's in the same way that Le Mans is iconic. It is, you think of Le Mans, you think of endurance racing. Same with Nürburgring, you think of maybe sprint racing or F1 for the GP part of it, or you think of Nordschleife and you think of the ultimate test of driver and machine.
Yeah.
Whereas there's so many tracks across the world, across Europe, that they are so unique. They have something that nothing else offers.
I mean, one of the other races I'd love to go to, 24 Hours to Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah.
You know, it's a GT3 stalwart. It's part of SRO's calendar every single year. And, those are two fearsome tracks. I think the Nordschleife is definitely one I'd want to I want to be there for.
Where would you want to camp out at the Spa circuit? Top of Radion?
I'd like to go somewhere like, say, Stavelot or the bus stop, going through Blanchimont, Blanchimont, they're pushing like 6th gear, 260 kph on the apex, and they're still foot to the floor.
Yeah. I'm just going wherever the party is. That's it's quite an easy one for me. But yeah, Blanchimont is a very, very good shout, because obviously you've got them coming around the corner and then you're going down on the through the gears to the bus stop chicane. But I mean, trying to somehow get focus back to Le Mans. Let's imagine we could just pick a corner to stay at for the entire race. Guys, where would we go?
Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Mainly because, for me, I'd want to see overtaking. And if you can sit on the outside of Indianapolis, you get to see the run into Indianapolis, and you get to see it on Arge. And I don't feel that anywhere else you get that same kind of opportunity to see moves being made.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. Does anyone remember in real life when Benoit Trullier made an audacious overtake with wrecked tyres in the Audi, of all places heading towards the Porsche curves?
Yeah, that's
the Porsche curves. That's taken well over 220 clicks in 5th gear or 6th, depending which car you're in. The Porsche curves, just to see the cars, see the brake disc glow, the exhaust glow, the fire shooting out from the exhaust like 3 in the morning, and you smell all that fuel and rubber, and you can actually see the cars in a very different state to when they start. They're all pristine, all auto glimmed up to the nines, and then you get to like 12 hours in. The main thing that the teams are cleaning are the headlights, the number boards. They're taking off any tear off the windscreens, and making sure there's no debris in the tuning vanes and the front splitters and the radiator rills, making sure that if any contact has happened, I'll be instantly working on it, pull it straight in the garage, get it back out quickly.
What about you, David?
I'm kind of drawn between the first chicane, which I thought sounded like a nice place to be, but in reality, thinking about it, is, oh my goodness me, Matthias Harvig, absolute tank slapper, and throws another car into the wall there. I was in the middle of a thought there.
That's Sector 3, and that was one of the DSR cars, I think, maybe?
Wow, that was
like the dream team.
Brutal accident, nonetheless.
Are having a nightmare. This seems to be a running gag with them, unfortunately. Not through any of their detriment, but it just goes to show that's exactly what we were talking about. Mechanical sympathy.
Yep.
You make a mistake, your race could be over before it's even got on going.
And not just that as well, and I'll come back to the conversation about the corner in a minute. On that note, how often have we seen when you get a car that has a moment and goes into the wall, gets some damage onto the car itself? Guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed, within 4 or 5 corners that car's going to have another accident. And then that goes from being, maybe say 5 minutes of repairs to 25 minutes of repairs. And that's where the real damage happens, because most drivers, they need to practice as much as they need to practice going fast. They need to practice going slow, and they need to practice how to work with a damaged car, because they don't put, in my opinion, enough time into that. And that is where you really could save a lot of time, because if you can minimize that damage and keep it to as little as possible, that's what's going to keep you in the position. Because as we said before, it's all about luck. It's all about minimizing risk.
And I want to follow up on that, because that's a really good point that you just made about how these accidents happen. And one of the most common form of accidents that we see in the Endurance Racing World Championship is the driver will have an accident, they'll head off, they'll have a little wiggle, suspension seems fine, tracking seems fine, they go into a corner, oh no, rear wing's gone, back end just steps out, and they thwack into a wall, lose a wheel, something like that. And the driver doesn't really know. That has to be on the teams to be keeping a keen eye and saying, whoever it is, you don't have a rear wing, be really cautious through the corners.
I think that would help, but I think also there's a certain onus on the drivers when they have an accident. If it's a big accident and it's big enough to take
if you go rear end into a wall,
but
take a check.
Not just that, I think for me, what I would suggest is, treat it like you're taking the car back out of pit lane. It's cold tyres. It's completely cold car. You've got no idea. Those first couple of corners are a purely exploration thing where you're trying to see, first of all, if the car will actually stop in a straight line, because you just don't know. So that is a huge thing. And how often have you seen that, though, Yusuf, where accidents lead to more accidents, and they didn't need to happen? They could have easily, saved themselves minutes upon minutes of repairs and potentially ruining their race. On the other hand, how often have we seen it where you get some drivers and teams where it looks like it doesn't matter what they do to their car or to their team, that they're somehow invincible and they can just shrug it off?
And I remember back to Le Mans last year, we had, I'm trying to remember what it was, I think a few Code 80s, I believe it was called.
Okay.
Because drivers had lost the wheel, driving on 3 wheels down the Mulsanne straight,
On that
trying
road,
to absolutely peg it to get back to the pits. And the stewards just have to come on, because their whole car's all over the place.
Yeah.
Stewards have to come on, say, Code 80, you're all down to 30 miles an hour, whatever it was. And instead of being able to limp back to the pits at 50, you're in a much trickier situation, and that driver mentality can really get to you. And on a kind of a side note from that, sometimes driver has a spin, driver behind has two options. You keep the foot in, try to avoid the incident, or you jump on the brakes, and 9 times out of 10 you can keep your foot down and it's fine. But that 1 out of 10 time, that can cost you the championship.
Yeah.
We saw that right there with the
DSR.
LMP2 cars, where one has an accident and the other one has to take that split-second decision:
True.
do I keep it keep it pinned, or do I try and take a evasive manoeuvre? And 9 times out of 10, it's the wrong decision. Doesn't matter what you do, it's the wrong thing to do, and you're either going to be straight into the car or you're going to be straight into the barrier. And unfortunately, also 9 times out of 10, it's the car that's following behind that actually gets the worst damage, because you've got the car in front. If it doesn't get hit and it just spins off, then it can just puttle away like nothing's happened. But that car behind has then just absolutely destroyed itself. And what's it got to show for it? It's not really done anything to deserve that.
Now, there is one thing in the last, 40 minutes or so that we haven't mentioned. Weather. Now, at the moment, air temperature, 23 degrees. Track temperature, 29 degrees. You know what I think we need to do? Let's see if we can get a weather forecast of what it's going to do in terms of the next few days.
Look at that. Peter's on top of his game.
Yeah.
That's at the moment. That's at the moment. But
Yeah.
we all know, David, rain plays a part, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and as if you watch here, this is progressing in, or it was progressing in.
Peter doesn't like
time
you.
there. Yeah, it just as soon as it's there, it's like, no, I'm not going to give David any help whatsoever. You're on your own here. Look,
Thrown under the bus, you were. weren't you?
yeah, I'm used to that. What can I say? But that is a fantastic point, because weather plays such a key part here. And the thing is that as much as we're talking about it and we get excited and giddy at the thought of rain, at changeable conditions, because it adds excitement, the drivers and the teams are absolutely watching it like a hawk, because they are all determining. Oh my goodness me, he's rolling 6. That was a heavy hit into the wall there. Goodness me.
Yeah.
Clean up on aisle 5. Sorry, I had to steal that from
Code
Alex
Brown,
there.
yes.
But
Thanks for that.
weather-wise, the team managers will be absolutely pinned to the radar on that one, because the setup is so important on these cars. As you see a replay of Roland going into the barriers there. So the team managers have a key point in this, in determining how they're going to set up the car for the weekend, and how, for qualifying, if it's going to be affecting it during the race as well, because you don't want to compromise your fast setup at all. Your dry setup is your optimal setup. That's the fastest thing you're probably going to do all over the weekend. The problem is if there's even a hint of rain, then suddenly you have to have a backup plan. You have to start thinking about maybe putting a little bit extra downforce on at the expense of top line speeds. And if you do that and the car behind you has got more grip and hasn't got that extra downforce, they get that a little bit extra speed, you're going to be a dead duck in the water to quite a few cars.
Well, obviously, coming back to the weather, Yusuf, I've just had a look on the GTR24H.org website,
Okay.
saying that clear throughout the day.
We don't like that.
However, light rain on Saturday through to next Wednesday. That's going to be interesting, isn't it? We've seen where qualifying sessions have been affected. I mean, Indianapolis, Silverstone, two prime examples at the beginning part of the season. That's going to really spice things up. And for those Le Mans fans out there, if you've watched Truth in 24, the first installment, not the second installment, where Tom Christensen was in the car and the legend engineer, Mr. Howard Haynes, Tom Christensen said, no, it's absolutely dry. And Howard Haynes went on the radio to Tom Christensen and said, it's absolutely peeing it down. They put him on inters. Tom went down the Mulsanne and said, these tyres are perfect. It's all going to come down to that split-second decision where that call can make the difference between you winning or ending up in the barriers.
And we saw it earlier this season. Any F1 fans? Sochi, Lando Norris
Yes.
can get a race win. And I was watching that race and I just thought for Lando, it's a horrible position to be in. You're leading a race, your first ever race win on the cards, and you've got to make that decision. For Lando, it was dry. It was dry enough for slicks. Rain came down harder, and it's a split-second decision. You can't really blame a driver either way. It's down to the fate of the cards. And David, you mentioned earlier, Le Mans picks its winner. You don't win the race by, some sense of logic. And going back to how impactful this rain can be and why it's actually more impactful than any other track on the calendar, this is the longest lap of the calendar. If you get that lap wrong, this isn't a 2-minute lap. This is near 4 minutes that you are out in the rain. And on top of that, rain plays a huge effect on strategy. All of a sudden, you have to consider how much longer can you stretch your fuel. If you're doing less lifting and coasting, all of a sudden, you're doing that one less lap. And as we mentioned, your stints in terms of how many laps you're doing are much shorter here at Le Mans. And that one lap is greater in terms of a total percentage of the number of the laps in your stint.
David, also, we're going to talk about one thing that we haven't really mentioned. The closing speeds.
Yeah.
DPI, LMP2 against GT3 and GTE. They're pushing like over 300 Ks in both the LMP2s and the hypercars. GTs, GT3s topping out about 280, 290, heading into the Hunaudière, the chicanes. That's going to be another factor that these teams are going to be eyeballs on stalks with.
Yeah, they absolutely are. The closing speeds are frightening when you're a spectator and you're watching this, for example, on stream or on TV. Before you know it, suddenly there's an LMP2 or a DPI car coming up onto a GTE or a GT3 car. That goes hand in hand with the other thing of traffic and traffic management and basically race management, because unlike any other endurance race, this is exactly what you're here to do. You're here to manage the other traffic, the other cars and other classes that are around here. Now, thankfully, Le Mans is also one of the widest circuits that the cars are going to be on, and you're seeing them come down the Mulsanne straight. And actually, for the DPI cars and the LMP2s, they don't mind it so much, because for the most part, on the Mulsanne straight, they'll actually dip in behind the GTE cars and GT3 cars, get a tiny, tiny little bit of toe, just dive out and go straight past. But the issue is actually on the slower cars. It's actually on the other classes, because what you've then got to remember, and what is so difficult to remember, is the fact that these other classes are still racing their own race. Yeah. How often have we seen it where an LMP2 car or a DPI car has come across a train of GTE or GT3 cars, and you're like, it's impacting the LMP2 car or the DPI car massively, but also you're not wanting to ruin this cracking little race that you've got for 3 or 4 cars that are going on in front of them. So there is a fine line to be found. The closing speeds are going to have to be watched and managed very, very carefully. It's going to be a huge issue during the night, for example, because all your braking reference points are gone, and if you're using the tail lights of the car in front to help you in distances and things like that, that's going to be very, very scary.
Yeah, I think another scary moment for Martin Millertai from Mugen Sim Racing, the 41 McLaren 650S GT3. He nearly had a proper tank slapper heading into Indianapolis, and he's just made his way through the Porsche curves. Let's go on to, I mean, we've got a couple more minutes before we go to our next commercial break, but okay, let's have a look at the times in this session. We've got about just under 2.5 to go, so we've now decided that we're going to look through the respective classes. So Yusuf, we'll go to you. I think you're going to take LMP2.
Yeah.
There's a bumper grid in there. It's like 12 cars. I mean, everyone's come out to play here at Le Mans.
Absolutely, and at the start of the season we said GT is the closest field, but I think LMP2 has slowly become closer and closer, especially in that midfield pack, because you've got Deuces, you've got DAC, you've got Ramada Motorsport, and actually even DSR are almost joining into that battle if they can have clean races. And so far, it looks like Deuces have come to play. They're looking very quick with Roy de Monk at the wheel of the car. The AC Hackers currently sitting second with Zoltan Varkonyi, and not far off the pace either. And then Pedro Ramada not far behind. So I think it's going to be the same as most of the races we've seen so far this season. Deuces, DAC, Ramada in a three-way.
I've got to cut across you here. I've just seen an almighty incident involving the 585 of Azatec SimSport in the Audi. There was one car, it was a McLaren. It was actually one of the newer entries. It was ID SimSport. That was a heavy clash between the pair. David, GTE, WOSR, iZone Performance with Jose Berengoya leading the way in this session. The Porsche is always strong around here at Le Mans, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's a cracking car to get going with. Very difficult to master, but once you do master it, it is properly rapid. Just looking at the time screens just now, it's Jose Berenguer who is currently fastest at the moment for the 51 World of Sim Racing team. ID SimSport currently second fastest just now, but just the 4 cars out in the GTE class just now, so we've got a yellow flag in sector 2. So again, it's difficult to gauge how representative this is going to be of the final class pace, because obviously we're not getting all the cards played at this early stage of the week, but it does give you that little bit of insight. And we do have quite a few different makes out on track just now, so yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But I really would have thought we'd see the satellite racing being a little bit further up the field just now, as we see Michael Castle having a huge tank slapper in the 188 coming out the corner there. But GTE, not much to report, unfortunately. Hopefully a little bit more in GT3.
Plenty, with good to see Teleforingen back in the grid here in GT3. Zolt Pribeck leads the way. Martin Millertai, who I was on board with from a driver's perspective behind the steering wheel, second. I mean, Zolt Pribeck, a 3:55, pretty good lap time there. Jan Brodsgaard from one of the ID SimSports car, the 177. We've got a McLaren 720S back again. Azatec SimSports in there as well. I think really, GT3 has been such a good class this season, Yusuf. With some of the teams, hopefully we'll see them for official free practice tomorrow night. There's going to be an opportunity for teams to get onto the server tomorrow, but we've got a lot of great drivers. DPI, we haven't really got much to talk about. We've got Well, funny enough,
Team Rookie Monsters, isn't it?
well, no.
No?
El Pastorino's been out as well
Oh, okay.
in 65, and he's currently out at the moment. Okay, oh, we've got a yellow out. There we go. Nello Pastorino coming out of the pit lane. And I cannot believe what I've just seen. Nello Pastorino recorded 334 kilometers an hour. That's over 210 on the straights. That just shows, David, how quick, how rapid this Cadillac DPI truly is.
Yeah, that'll wake some of the other cars up. Goodness me, 334. I mean, just watching it just now as Nello Pastorino makes his way through some of the GT3 and GTE cars with absolute ease. There's, we're going on to that conversation about closing speeds. There you go. There's a perfect example of exactly what to watch out for. Incredible pace in those cars. And with that, with the DPI, the other thing is, as he comes up on the back of that that Porsche there, and just immediately disposes of it before he can even blink. With the DPI cars, the other thing to get across to our viewers at home who maybe haven't watched too much of the endurance races or the different classes that are on offer here, the DPI is the downforce and the stability that car offers at such high speed. It is a joy to drive. It really is. It's it feels stable. As long as you don't touch the curbs, then you're absolutely fine. But Nello is just throwing it left, right and centre, and sometimes that's the way you have to be. You have to be aggressive. You have to push the car to its absolute limits. But when you're on the limits, that's when mistakes can happen. But Nello Pastorino absolutely on it right now. And Rookie Monsters, maybe they're making up for lost time.
Indeed. With that in mind, we're going to go to a commercial break. Back in a couple of minutes.
Round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H EEW season, Le Mans, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Azatec, Global Flix, Film Vault, ESTV, and Motorvision.tv.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
So a very warm welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. David Christie and my good friend Yusuf here with me as always. Alex has left the building temporarily. I don't know what we've done to... we've got the place to ourselves.
We do.
Right, so firstly, we've got to say a huge thank you to all of our commercial partners as well, to Viper Gaming by Patriot, to Noco, the no-carb company. I've been living on this stuff today. This is the only thing that's actually the reason I'm still awake at this time of day.
I thought it was my sense of humour.
To Ace Tech, to Global Flicks, to Film Vault Limited, to ESTV, Motorvision.tv, and also to Sten Goldman for these lovely Eton shirts. I'm not kidding, by the way. These are not going back. They think they're getting them back to get them embroidered. It's like,
You know, when I made that, well, I thought it was a joke. Alex came, he gave a thumbs up, but I don't know if that was a thumbs up as to how good my jokes were or to your response. Or maybe he was just very happy.
I think he was just happy he got to escape. That's what it was. But either way, you're here with us for the next half an hour, ladies and gentlemen. And Yusuf, I mean, obviously, there's not tons and tons that we can take away from tonight's performance. But how important do you think it is getting that practice in on server conditions, on the official warm-up server?
Well, I think the answer to that is look at the drivers on the server. It's one of those weird things because any driver can just create the server, make the settings, go out. But as someone who's raced myself, there's just a slight different feel about being in an official server, just practicing that way. We saw the Mugen guys out. They were having a right old dice between themselves. I believe it was Donat Diesner and Adam Sered. They were literally batting like it was a 10-minute sprint race, like in cadet karting, really. And it was so much fun to watch. So the drivers are out there. They're getting some practice in, again, using the official server settings. And it helps heading into the official practice tomorrow and then qualifying. And, of course, qualifying is going to be when we really get the idea as to pace, and it'd be premature to really judge pace just off the unofficial practice session.
Now, obviously, I'm coming into this weekend with the eyes of a newbie because I'm brand new to GTR24H, and for me, Le Mans is one of the best possible races for somebody that's new to sim racing to come into, because Le Mans is an incredible track for any amount of time. Now, with the fact that these drivers are going round this track for 24 hours straight, let's give some of the new watchers some of the things to think about. Let's start with the teams in terms of the drivers themselves. What impact is this going to have racing for 24 hours straight, do you think?
I won't say that Le Mans is one of the most physical tracks, because in my opinion it isn't. You've got other tracks like Spa where you've got corners much more consistently and it poses a bigger threat to the drivers. But the thing that you have to remember with Le Mans is while the corners are a threat for the driver, the straights are the threat for the car. You're running at higher revs for longer, and it means that especially over 24 hours you're more likely to get those mechanical issues. And so far this season, I believe in 4 of the 5 races we've had an incident affecting some of the top runners in one of the classes in the final hour of the race. In fact, maybe even in the final half hour of the race. So you can expect drama here at Indianapolis. That's, for me, the biggest thing. The fact that something can go wrong at quite literally any point in the race.
Now, obviously, Alex had mentioned earlier about mechanical sympathy. Now, what exactly do we mean when we say that?
So, essentially, when you're driving, for those of you who have done sim racing, you'll of course know this, but for those of you who are new, essentially, imagine you're driving your road car. You can be the boy racing, you're going, you know, as you're upshifting.
Sorry.
Do you
want to give us that again?
I think it's one of those that I can only drop in every half hour, so our viewers are going to have to wait until the next...
Are you our nyaun guy?
Maybe.
Meow. There we go.
Yeah,
right.
there we go.
Anyway.
So essentially, when you're driving, you can run in those higher revs, and in qualifying, that's absolutely what you have to do, because you want to be maximizing how quickly you can go on the straight. But when you get into the race, essentially the way R Factor 2 works is because it's a sim, it's not real life, so you don't get the actual wear of an engine. It's based off percentages, based off calculations, maybe a little bit of RNG. But essentially, the easy way to break it down is the longer you're in the higher revs for, the more damage it does to your engine. I think the cutoff is around 5,000 or 6,000 RPM. So once you get into those high RPM, you just want to lift off the throttle a little bit, especially once you're in your final gear, and just coast a bit. Lift and coast into corners, and that just helps the engine a little bit. If you can stay in slipstream, that's really nice as well, because you can lift off without losing any time.
And obviously that might sound a little counterintuitive, given that it's a race, and we're obviously talking about lifting off, and another term that we use is lifting and coasting.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's talk about fuel management and why lifting and coasting is a common thing. So firstly, what is lifting and coasting?
So lifting and coasting is very simply when you're heading into a braking zone, instead of jumping on the brakes, releasing the brakes and turning in, you essentially lift off the throttle from much earlier before your braking point. So if your normal braking point was, let's say, 100 meters, you lift off about 150 meters and then just ease on the brake. And essentially that means you're off the throttle for a longer period of time, you're consuming less fuel. And one of the interesting things about this is even in the likes of Formula One, drivers will do this when they don't have to save fuel. And the reason for this is if you aren't braking as hard into the corner, let's say you stay on that brake pedal for 1/10 of a second too long. If you're really hard on the brakes at that point and you go a bit too long, you could lose 10 miles an hour. If you're a little bit lighter on the brakes at that point and you overshoot your braking, you lose 2-3 miles an hour. So it's much easier when you're lifting and coasting just to carry a little bit more corner speed and get a better exit as well. So as well as helping fuel, it can sometimes even help your lap time and let you get into a rhythm that little bit better.
Excellent. Well, there we go. Hopefully that clears it up for some of you guys and girls up at home. Practice, though, again, it's such an important thing for the teams. As you said, a lot of these drivers could just set up their own session. They could do a private testing. But another thing surely has to be the fact that they're mixing with some of the other drivers in class. Do you think that gives them an idea of how much pace that the other cars have got?
It's a weird one because, again, having been in some of these open practice sessions myself, you jump in and you can never really be sure what exactly is the other team holding back. And for anyone who, again, my mind goes to F1, pre-season testing, are Mercedes sandbagging as usual? That kind of aspect. You can usually be sure if you're really far ahead of another team, but then again, sometimes you're thinking, wait, hang on, how am I 2 seconds a lap quicker? You don't really know. So the best thing you can just do is get out there, put in your laps, see what the lap time difference is from your private server that you almost undoubtedly would have been practicing on to the official server, and just using that to make some adjustments, really.
So let's turn our attention to what we have on track, and we're obviously watching Jan Brudsgaard here for ID SimSport in the 177. The GT3 class isn't one we've not really spoken much about, purely because there's not too much on the agenda practice-wise. With that case, say like GTE, where we've got like 4 cars, how, does that make a difference if they've got less cars on to practice against, or do they care?
To be honest, I don't think they do. You're just out there, you're practicing yourself. In the race, I think it tends to make it a little bit duller, just because you've got less people to really race against. And sometimes, and you brought this up earlier about how when you're racing in the night, it can become difficult. But for some drivers, they really relish in the nighttime driving experience. And I believe it was Adam Sorej that I interviewed earlier this year, or maybe it was one of the drivers from DEAC Hackers. And they were just mentioning how they enjoy driving at night just because it's just them and the track. There's no distractions, and you can just really settle into the car and just get on with your stint, get on with your driving. And sometimes drivers prefer it. I personally don't, just because it's very hard to sometimes see the corners, see your braking markers. But other drivers do very well. And for this open practice session, good to see ID SimSport in their first time racing in the GT3 class, and it could be one of those that really mixes up the championship. And we mentioned it earlier how there is still a lot to play for in the GT3 class, and these new entries who aren't part of the championship, they're still gunning for wins. They don't care if they interfere in that championship battle, which is what we as spectators, we as commentators, absolutely love to see.
Yeah, we love a bit of fighting, do we? Just saying there, actually, ID Simsport doing the fastest lap in their class there, 3:57. So that's 3:56.7. So that is a decent time there. But again, just watching Jan come through the final couple of corners, the LMP2 cars, when they come up on them, is so fast. There's, you know, I wonder how intimidating that is for a GT3 or a GT driver to have an LMP or a DPI car coming up behind them.
It's weird. So with the endurance racing I've done, it's been mainly everyone in a GTE class. So I'll be honest, I've been slow, and I've had people closing up on me, and it always makes me think, why am I so slow on the circuit? But it's kind of weird. It's almost a bit surreal. You've got an LMP2 car closing at you at phenomenal speeds compared to your own, and the only thing that you can do is just stay on your racing line. You never move out of the way of the car. That's one of the big differences from endurance racing to sprint racing. The onus is on the driver lapping you to do it safely. You just focus on your own race. Don't drive defensive. They'll find a way through.
And a lot of the drivers, the drivers in the DPI and the LMP2 actually insist on that. They prefer on that. The drivers that are getting passed to stay on their line, because they want a predictable car in front of them. The last thing they want is a jittery car that's out in front of them and potentially causing them some sort of issue. I'm also seeing this as well, given that we're going to be doing qualifying tomorrow night. I'm actually a little bit surprised that we don't see some more of the teams out for this. But with so much at stake for a lot of the teams, I'm just wondering, is there... You mentioned sandbagging when we were talking about F1. Is there a chance that some of the teams out here tonight are potentially sandbagging? They don't want to show what real pace they actually have and keep something for qualifying or keep something for the race?
I think that is undoubtedly the case, and it'll happen in one of two ways. Either you've got intentional sandbagging, where a driver will, let's say every lap, just go a little bit slow through a particular corner. But then there's the other type, which I think is also a lot more likely, where you just run with a high set of fuel, maybe some worn tires, and then even if you're completely pushing, you're still going to be a second a lap slower than your qualifying pace. And sometimes that's all that you have to do just to be able to throw another driver off. And to go back to your previous point about when you're lapping someone here at Le Mans, is one of the reasons why I really like Le Mans as a circuit and a track to... Oh, as my headphones just died momentarily because our sellotape fell down. I was wondering, has my microphone fallen out? No, it's just a whole wire.
Top secrets here.
Top secret. We have wires here at GTR24H. You might be surprised to hear that.
I'm going to jump in for a second because on my screen here, we've put this up here. This is Michael Tyler there in the E-Team Brit car in the number 68, and this just gives you an idea, going down the straight here, the absolute speed that these cars have. And, you know, trying to keep it straight on a straight is such a difficult thing in these cars. It's absolutely incredible. So through the first chicane here, then it's on to the second part of this straight. And again, you're really pushing the car as hard as you can. But this is where mechanical sympathy comes into on this straight here, because you really don't want to push it to the absolute extent, are you?
And if you just look at the steering wheel, you can see the revs. They've hit the red. That's a bit where in a race you wouldn't want to be at that point. You'd want to get to those final two orange, then upshift. You don't want to go into the red in a race. In qualifying you do, and that's how you know that Michael Tyler is pushing. He's hitting those red rev limiters, and at the very least he's pushing the engine out of the second Mulsanne chicane. And now you're heading towards the Mulsanne hairpin. You're jumping on the brakes really late, and you've got that little kink coming in, using all of the track. And again, the curb, open up the steering, back on the power, And Alex was mentioning earlier in the show how the curbs here at the circuit and on the R Factor 2 platform can just cause a little bit of damage. Again, in qualifying, you're going to completely thwack over those curbs. But in the race, you just want to be giving a little bit more sympathy to the suspension in this case.
Absolutely, and with Mulsanne as well, the corner there is so deceptive because it's almost two corners in one. You've got that gentle right-hander, and then it leads over onto the left-hand side before the second hairpin, or the second tight part of the corner there, as we go side by side with both Michael Tyler and George Manuzakis there for Ramatic Motorsport. But as the car comes down Mulsanne and then goes through Golf and then down into Indianapolis, where he is in fact just now, it's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because it's fine during the day, you've got plenty of brake markers, you can use the visual cues, you can use bridges, you can use brake points, you can use signs overhead, but when darkness falls, it very quickly gets dark at Le Mans, and it also gets a lot more difficult because all those reference points are gone.
And these tracks don't have lighting. The cars have headlights, and the headlights, to be honest, are fairly bright, but it's still difficult to be able to see apexes, and you have to be able to find a marker as, wow, Michael Tyler really going over the curb.
Sorry, what was that about mechanical sympathy?
Remember what I said in qualifying, you just thwack over the curbs. This is Michael Tyler getting his practice in, right? How much can I jump the curbs and not lose any time? But I think in that instance, he probably lost about a few tenths up to half a second. And back to the point that we were making, which has kind of slipped my mind now.
Well, I think watching Michael Tyler destroy the car over the curbs has kind of just distracted us there. But actually, just watching him come through Tête Rouge here, and this is probably, I would say, one of the most important corners on the track, because when you're going through Tête Rouge, you have to keep as much speed in the car as you possibly can, because if you lose speed coming out of that corner, on the exit, you're straight onto the Mulsanne straight, and you're a sitting duck for any cars in your class there.
And last year when I was here for Le Mans, Peter was kind enough to turn on our Factor 2, jumped on his sim, did a few laps of Le Mans in the LMP2 car. And it was my first ever laps at Le Mans. I've never driven the track before. I didn't know the circuit, so I was learning the track on the fly during that broadcast. And for me, Tête Rouge was the most difficult corner because it's so deceptive. It opens up so much on corner exit, and you have to have so much faith in the car that it's going to stick and know how much it opens up. And as you mentioned, long straight into that first Mulsanne chicane. If you get it wrong, you're going to be a sitting duck. And the two Mulsanne chicanes, sure, you've got a long exit, but it's not as deceptive as to how much speed you can actually take. So Tête Rouge is a big point, and it's where we actually do see a lot of mistakes being made, because sometimes drivers get a little bit too greedy with the amount of grip they have available to them.
And there's a huge learning curve with these LMP2 cars, isn't there? Just watching how they corner is completely different to the GTE and GT3 cars as we head down into Mulsanne corner for the next time here. I'm just watching on the left-hand side of your screen here. We're watching Michael Tyler just exiting out of Mulsanne on the accelerator, down that right-hander through Golf, and then down into Indianapolis, this left-hander after this right. Now, I always found that Indianapolis it looked more intimidating than it actually was, because this right-hander here is actually fairly straightforward in a high downforce car, but it's onto the brakes into Indianapolis, and the banking, if you get it wrong, it actually pushes your car out wide and makes your job very, very difficult indeed. And then out of the corner there at Arnage. And that is the answer to the question, ladies and gentlemen, that was asked about an hour ago. Where would I go? Arnage, probably, because you watch the cars coming out of Indianapolis, possibly coming in Indianapolis, coming out of there, down into Arnage, and then watch them go off down the straight as well. Talking of which, here we go down into the where are we now?
I think we can
Porsche
see Alex Goldschmidt there. You know, he said he wanted to watch in the Porsche curves.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. You've got to say that's a good choice, actually. Yeah. So through the final couple of corners, and again, keeping the momentum up through the karting corners and through Corvette, so important, because this is it. This is the cherry on top of your lap here, and we come down into the final corners now into Ford. And again, this double chicane, so easy to get wrong because how many times have we seen the LMP2 cars and the DPIs, as soon as they hit a curb, spin round like a record baby, as Michael Taylor comes across line. And I've got to be honest, that's a decent lap for E-Team Brit.
Yeah, it is a decent lap, and I just want to go over through a few of the sectors, and I want to start off first with what you were mentioning through Sector 3, because it is the most technical part of the circuit. Some might call it the Mickey Mouse part of the circuit, just because of how much slower you're going relative to the rest of the track. And by that, I'm not talking about the Porsche curves, of course. Those are very fast. You're going through that particular sequence of corners. But through that final few corners, it's all about getting the suspension right, because if you've got it a bit too hard, you really can't abuse the curves, and that's exactly what you need to be doing in that final sector. But to go back to Indianapolis and Arnage, it's all about the exit you get through Indianapolis, because you're practically going nearly flat out through Indianapolis. It's just a quick downshift, but you need to be able to hold it tight. If the car comes out wide, all of a sudden your entry into Arnage is not going to be, or pardon me, I should say your entry into Indianapolis is a fast right-hander that is practically completely flat. And when we were driving down, or when Peter was driving us to the studio, we were listening to that Henry Cynic interview with Kieran. And Henry was saying that he didn't like the LMP2 cars just because when you jump on the brakes, the rear ends are so twitchy. We actually saw a moment from Michael Taylor as well when he was heading into Arnage that the back end can just step out. And that is so important.
Oh, now Michael Taylor.
That's fire. I've never seen that before on the game.
How has he managed to explode the car? That is, there's flames all over the car.
I'm going to see if I can...
Actually, he's done a good thing. He's at least stopped it by the stewards. And
I thought we could try to heat up the studio.
Yeah, well, apparently in the production part, it doesn't need heated up anywhere. But, right, okay, well, while we go and get our marshmallows out and get a wee bit of toasted marshmallow goodness, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching the open practice here. And yeah, I think without further ado, time to take a very short commercial break. We'll be back after this.
Round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H EEW season, Le Mans, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Azatec, Global Flicks, Film Vault, ESTV, and Motorvision.tv.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. As it's Alex Goldschmidt returning. David Christie has gone for a little bit of a breather, but I'm back with my good friend, Yusuf bin Suhail. Michael Tyler has been the first big casualty of an open practice session, and we're only in the first day of getting things, shipshape and Bristol fashion. It's always good when the teams have these opportunity with these practice sessions to iron out the bugs out of the systems, don't they?
See, you say he's the first casualty. I say he's the first winner. He's the first one to find the limit of the car. And look, we're not going to pretend this is real racing. If they blow the engine, it's not going to cost them. I don't even want to think about fathom how much it actually costs. When you've got these open practice sessions, and I remember back to when I was karting, my uni karting captain, Mr. Enzo Degini himself, used to tell me, don't you dare spin in the race. You can spin as many times as you want in the practice session. That's fine. Go into the grass 25 times if you need to. Find the limit. But when you're in the race, that's when you can't make any mistakes. So if Michael Tyler wants to explore those limits now, we saw him really going over the curbs. This is his opportunity to do so.
Again, as always, we have to thank our fantastic commercial backers and partners, Viper Gaming by Patriot, the No Carbs Company, Nocco. I've been knocking back a few, as has David, and I know that Kieran will be...
Was that a pun that I just heard?
It's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, first one of the weekend. Well, we've been at it all weekend long so far.
And I'm the bad one, all right?
Apparently so. Well, I think we're just as bad as each other. Azatec, Global Flix, Film Vault Limited, who actually were the title sponsors of the second round of the championship, the 12 Hours of Silverstone, the Esports Television Network, and we will be broadcasting on every single one of their 30-plus channels for the whole of the twice-around-the-clock race here at Le Mans. Motorvision.tv, our good friends over in Germany. Sten Goldman for the fantastic Eton shirts that we're all wearing at the moment. Pop your collar, that kind of thing. But we're looking at Taylor Lane now in Team Rookie Monsters. I understand there's more than just one DPI. There's two, because the number of the devil has returned again, 666.
And that's the main Team Rookie Monsters car.
Exactly.
They have some very nice liveries, and I also realise now that I've lost my co-commentator, it's a chance for me to lean back, kick back,
put your feet up
and enjoy the show. Don't tell him, by the way.
No, I'm
our
not
secret.
Sure.
Our secret.
Shh, quiet.
No, he's looking through the window.
You got rumbled within 60 seconds,
man. Don't forget, to any of our viewers, if you want to get involved, hashtag GTR24H on Twitter. If you're watching through YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, you can get involved through the relevant chats, but hashtag GTR24H on Twitter, I'm keeping my eye on it.
Yep. Don't forget, you can go to GTR24H.org, our official website, and Michael Tyler returns after a bit of a lengthy stay in the garage. Now, I've had the opportunity to catch up with some of the E-Team Brit drivers. They've been running in the Simply Race Endurance Series that had its first round, the 12 hours of all circuits, the Bud International. And all cars were the DPIs. Everyone was in a Cadillac DPI VR for 12 hours.
It's good practice, isn't it?
It's very good practice. I mean, especially, I've been having a look at the lap times in the meantime during my time away from the commentary position. That the DPIs, when I left, were about a couple of seconds adrift of the LMP2s. I've got a question for you. Do you think that might cause a little bit of a problem in the closing speeds between the LMP2 and the DPIs? Are they going to be quite comparable?
I think we've seen it since the DPI class was introduced, and to be honest, right, this two main reasons for that. Which you think is the main reason is entirely up to you.
Okay.
And one of those reasons is, well, the DPI class is new. Teams are still getting used to it, still learning how to set it up. The other reason is you might just think the drivers in the LMP2 class are quicker. It could be any of those two. It could be a combination of those two factors. I personally think it is a combination of two, but I think the fact that we're seeing those DPI cars, the DPI lap times getting quicker, suggests that it's more of the first.
Yeah, Nello Pastorino has put in the benchmark now for number 65, Satellite Racing. 3 minute 25.676 around this fantastic 13.623 kilometer circuit. We're also seeing some onboard footage of Musto GD Esports.
Looks a bit familiar, doesn't it?
It does. Fabio Liuzzi behind the wheel.
You know what? I think we need to get the same view that they gave us for that lovely hot lap introduction that they did.
Indeed. Thank you very much to the team there. Was it Mattia, I think, that did the hot lap in the voiceover?
Mattia Krupi.
Mattia Krupi, so mille grazie. You see, we're going to be bringing out some nice little bit of linguistic skills over the course of the coming days. Taylor Lane has put in a best effort of a 3 minute 26.782 in the 555. LMP2, it is E-Team Brits Matt Webb that has put in the fastest lap time, 3 minute 27.820, ahead of Pedro Ramada. Horvath Benz from Juices Motorsport running out the top three in the number 16 car. George Manasakis in the other, well, the doppelganger, let's say, because we are seeing in these free practice sessions that multiple cars of the same team are running in these sessions. But obviously when we get to official practice, it's going to be a little bit different, isn't it?
Once you get to the official practice, teams are only allowed one iteration, let's say, of their car out on track. But I personally really like having this open practice or unofficial practice, because you get to see what the difference between the drivers are. And with some teams, you'll see their 2 or 3 drivers all within a tenth of each other, super close. And then other teams, you'll see one alien like Henry Senick miles above others. And that's not to say the other drivers are bad by any means. It's just that sometimes that one driver is absolutely incredible. And we saw that even last season with the 45 of DIS. Andy Kurtzen, absolute rocket. And now we're seeing DIS doing rather well in the GTE class. And if I remember correctly, Andy Kurtzen has been picked up by a new team recently.
Oh, do tell.
I'm trying to remember which team it was.
The funny thing was, I'm not too sure.
Was it Ace-Tech?
No. Ace-Tech are running as a 3-driver crew. You've got Valdemar Eriksson, Largim Ali. Funny thing is, you know how sim racing actually really makes you appreciate how close the motorsport community really is.
Yeah.
How's this for a little bit of a tidbit? Both Valdemar Eriksson and Largim Ali have raced in Rotax in not just possibly Denmark. Largim Ali, I commentated on him in Rotax, I think possibly the Euro Trophy.
Okay.
Both with the same team. Now, how's this? Now, Azotec actually sponsor the Danish Super GT Championship.
Right.
One driver made a reappearance to the championship. Robert Schlunsen runs RS Competition, a European powerhouse in karting. Run quite a few drivers that have made the transition from karting to single-seaters, like Mads Ries, who I know very well personally, commentated on him in junior and senior road tax. He's been racing in Danish Formula 5 this year, amongst other people. And Robert Schlunsen got back behind the wheel after a lengthy hiatus in real life. But also, coming on to GTE, have you spotted a familiar name? The 128 of Satellite Racing's Pauli Ahonen.
Can I interview him?
Yes.
Yes. So-
Our very own
Kimi
GTR24H version of the legend that is Mr. Kimi Raikkonen.
So, for our viewers wondering what on earth we're thinking about, and essentially, Pauli Ahonen is a Finn, and
Yep.
in true Finnish style, he's a man of few words, and
Yep.
he's an absolute delight to interview. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. I genuinely actually quite enjoy interviewing him, and I think I was the first one of us to have that pleasure. And Pauli Ahonen, if I remember, he was in, what car was he in?
Valente Racing 66 Aston Martin, because we had the two cars.
Yeah.
You remember there's something that we haven't
Remember
actually...
they were getting all the penalties in one of the races?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was the 67, not the 66. The 67 was the inadvertent black sheep, let's just say, because they were the one that were getting the wrong end of the stick. Not in they were making they were making mistakes, but it compromised them and gave them penalties. Henrik Hoyer at the moment in the 404, running out there for Glam Racing in GT3. Callum Wilson's always a delight to interview in the commentary box, isn't he?
Absolutely. And we've been lucky enough to be able to speak to Callum Wilson or Maria, the team boss from Glam Racing, multiple times over the course of the season.
Yeah, well, Maria actually is now a friend of mine on Facebook, and she said, well, hopefully we'll see you at the LAN event in 2022. You know what? I'm really looking forward to that, because obviously 2019 was the last time we had a LAN event. You know, went down really, really well. Then the pandemic came along, changed the world to what we know now. And I think now, having been just over 18 months in that, it's really changed, I think, everyone's outlook on life. Everyone's wanting to come back into things.
You appreciate things more.
Well, exactly. It's just one of those things where I think we didn't really know how it was all going to play out.
Yeah.
Everything was shut down. We were all pretty much like caged animals in our houses, not knowing when we were going to be able to return to not complete normality, but a step or a couple of steps towards normality. Then it's like one step forward, two steps back when everything shut down again. Christmas was a very difficult time last year. And then we come into 2021 and things are on the uptake. Everyone's looking forward to having that sense of community. We've made, I mean, even us here in the studio, we've made friends online. And now that we're able to take it that one important step further to see people, and to now be here in the HQ at GTR24H here in Middelfart, Denmark, meeting Peter and John, it really, you said this very well, you appreciate things that you normally would have taken for granted.
Absolutely. And you know, when you were saying about, you know, and just saying the fact that we're here in the studio at Middelfart, it just puts a smile on my face, because we are here. It's really cool. And you mentioned how we had LAN events back in 2019 before the pandemic hit. Well, for me, I'd never done a LAN, so I'm kind of a product of, you could almost call it the COVID era, because that's when I kind of really grew as a commentator, and I've just been waiting for these opportunities to come around and see, you know, what was everyone really talking about? What's all the hype about?
And now, look at this shot on board from Giordano Valeriano on board with the 54 sister car Musto GD Esports through one of the chicanes on the Mulsanne, the Hunaudière, as they call them. I'm going to give my best French pronunciation as much as I can.
Better than mine.
But again, you know, this part of this other side of the garage, has really been through the ringer. We mentioned about what happened earlier on in the season. They've consistently performed after that one big blip.
In the
We
first
mentioned
round of
about-
the season as well.
Yeah, we mentioned about team orders. If I'm honest with you, who's not to say that 54 picks up the title rather than 53? I know it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But David said this earlier on in the broadcast. You don't choose to win Le Mans. Le Mans chooses you. And speaking of which, on your screens, the flying Finn himself, Mr. Ahonen, I tell you what, I really do like the choice of car. They've gone with the C7.
Yeah.
Callaway Corvette, run by HM Engineering.
I was about to bring that up, yeah.
Championship. They won, then dropped off the GTR24H radar. I did see Harry Stanley competing, I think, in the R Factor 2 GT Pro Series a couple of times. So it's really good to see drivers coming back, and some are not here for championship glory. They are here to enjoy the experience, be with good friends. We know that several teams are actually not that far from our location, are they?
No, they're not. We might be paying them a visit as well, hopefully, in the upcoming days. But to go back to what you were saying, I was speaking with David earlier while you were taking a break, and we were saying it's so good when you've got, I wouldn't say for fun teams, but essentially teams that are here just to enjoy the event, because they're not worried about the championship. They want to win the race, and it can throw a spanner into the championship works, and it makes things more interesting.
Yeah.
And I personally really like it when the teams don't say, oh, you're battling for the championship, I'm going to let you through. No, you're in the race, you enter the race, you put the time in, race for the position, and if something happens, that's racing. And
Exactly.
to touch on what you were talking about before with regards to the Musto guys, absolutely, you can see a scenario where the 54 wins, but I don't think it's ever going to be a point where, I think it's going to be very clear if the 54 is going to take the win, because they're going to have to be 3 or 4 positions ahead of the A team, you could call it. So they won't be in a position where they can give the position up. If they're running in second and the 53 car is running in fourth, let's say, and the 53 car needs to finish in third to win the championship, that 54 car is going to slow down. I'm 99% sure of that, to give the position up to the 53 car. If there's a chance that the 54 car can take the title, then I think they go for it. Or if there is a battle between 54 and 53 and they're the only ones in the title hunt at whatever point in the race, then team orders off. But I think for the most part, it's going to be, let's help the 53 team as much as we can, because we want that title and the prize money that comes with it as well, because that money is big for a team, for an organization.
Yeah. Oh, funny enough, speaking of Maria Rinhak from
Has she
Glam
messaged
Racing,
you?
She has just messaged me. This is what I love about the world as we know it today. Everyone can connect by the power of a smartphone, and she's just written to me and said the LAN event is something special. Sums up the whole racing experience. She's typing as I'm actually saying this at the moment. Also,
we're getting an insight into Alex's Facebook messages. It's like Gogglebox. We're watching the race, but we're also... Can we get his message up onto the screen in the middle?
My britches, and we've got an hour and 36 minutes to go. But she's also giving me an insight, like seeing what rig setups everyone has. Because in a LAN event, there's nowhere to hide. And I mean that in the honest sense possible, because... You know, people are going to socialise. People are going to see each other again.
I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be taking... Guys, if you want now, I'll DM you my PayPal. I'll go spy on the other teams, find out what their setups are, and I'll give them to you. No, I won't be doing that. Don't worry.
Yeah, Inspector Bin Suhail, instead of Inspector Clouseau, you know.
Double agent.
Playing both sides, of course.
Yeah.
Oh! Look who we have here, the newcomer back behind the wheel. Nick Newcomb, the team boss at Juices Motorsport. Now, they've had a very interesting season, not just in LMP2, but also GTE. Wojtek Poleszny. Do I really need to say anything more about the opening round at Indianapolis? The GTE car qualified on pole. Poleszny did a number on everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Then we came to the first set of pit stops. Poleszny had to wait an absolute eternity to get into the pit box.
Yeah.
And then Nick gets behind the wheel. All of a sudden, computer decides to give up the ghost, and he's into the barriers, and the race is done. But, you know, it's really good to see Nick driving and out there at Le Mans. He's just passed the Teleforingen 188 GT3 car coming down the back straightaway here at the Mulsanne. It's really good to see that it doesn't matter if you're a team manager or you're just one of the drivers. If you're behind the wheel of that car, you are giving it 10 tenths. You're giving it everything to extract the biggest amount of aerodynamic efficiency, like, say, getting the toe down the straight, manhandling the curbs, like we saw with Michael Tyler.
Yeah.
And Nick, we know Nick is very capable behind the wheel. He's been giving me a bit of insights as well. Like, was talking about the DPI and the LMP2 differential in terms of lap times. Very interesting. You mentioned about lap stints for LMP2s. Yeah, around about 13, 14 laps a stint. The biggest thing is there's another little caveat here. It's about how the tyres degrade over the course of a stint. Our teams, are they going to double stint tyres? And that's going to be another part of that mechanical sympathy equation I sort of talked about earlier on.
Yeah. And we've seen it in multiple races.
Yeah.
How those double stints come into effect. Sometimes you even see triple stints if a team's really good on their tyres. Mm-hmm. And Nick Newcomb, very quick driver. I remember the first time I saw him racing was back at Matsusaka after Nick had brought me onto the team. And
David Christie, you absolute charlatan. Alex has no place to hide. I don't know.
What's this
he
about?
like? It's like, hey, it's social media.
I mean,
you know.
he's right. You're on camera. You can't really hide.
No, neither can you.
Well, no, I can, like...
Oh, dear.
I think... Have I hidden?
Oh,
Am I out the
no.
camera shot?
I think you just have.
If you can do this, you prove David Christie wrong, that you can hide.
David Christie, how about them apples? You absolute...
David, don't forget, hashtag GTR24H on Twitter.
Oh,
so
Taylor
everyone can
Lane's
see.
just lost a wheel.
He has.
And, oh, that's the left
He's
front.
made the car lighter, Alex. I see no disadvantages in this whatsoever.
Let's have a look at the replay here.
Absolutely.
Okay, now this is this... That's Arnage. Or is that... Yeah, it's
That is
Arnage. And he's gone right, and the left front has just gone... Yeah, that car's crawling.
Is that what they say from cars? Turn right to go left? Is that what he was trying to do?
Possibly. I think it's definitely the left front that's... Yep. Yeah, that left wheel arch is
Do
complete...
you remember when Michael Schumacher made it back to the pits on 3 wheels in Spa?
After he collided with the back end of David Coulthard and went after him. Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, because that was also where the late Murray Walker said, it's the biggest accident I've ever seen.
Start of the race?
Yeah, start of the race. They had to restart it. And then the guttural, oh God, when like literally Schumi just went up the back end of Coulthard. I've just recently watched the new Schumacher documentary on Netflix. As 3 wheels on that wagon. That just goes to show that when you're pushing 10 tenths or maybe even beyond, you can have that moment. The mechanical sympathy is being shown here tonight.
As I said, winner, finding the limits of the car.
Michael Tyler blowing the engine.
If you do it too often, you might give a bit too much confidence to the other teams. Say, oh yeah, they're constantly in the walls. We can beat them easily. But whenever I see this, sometimes I think, what are they doing driving dangerously back to the pits? They could hit another car. And then I remember that incident, I believe it was back at the Nürburgring, where I think it was a BMW, it had its bonnet fully up, and the driver couldn't see, trying to drive back to the pits with absolutely no field of vision whatsoever. He made it all the way back to the pits, and then he hit the pit entry tire stack, and then the bonnet fell down, which was very entertaining to witness.
Yeah, I remember that one as well. It just goes to show not everything goes right. But on your screens, Matt Webb from E-Team Brit. Funnily enough, some interesting news from the parent team, Team Brit, have just released images of their new British GT Challenger. They're going into GT4 next year in a McLaren 570S with Bobby Trundley and Aaron Morgan behind the wheel. Aaron Morgan is in a wheelchair, paraplegic. Bobby Trundley, well, if anyone knows about Daytona D-Max in the UK, I think you probably do know about that championship.
I'm vaguely aware, yeah.
Yeah, it was before Club Hut 100 really came onto the scene big time, and it was an arrive and drive championship. I commentated on Bobby back then, and yeah, like the work that Dave Player has done behind the scenes with that team is absolutely fantastic. A customer racing team of McLaren now. Matt Webb is flinging that number 68 Erika 05 around the outside through the Porsche curves of all places.
And this is one of the biggest reasons, and David was asking this question before, which was kind of, why join the unofficial practice session when you can join your own practice session? There aren't any other cars, you can get that practice. There is one thing that you can't practice in your own session, which is overtaking back markers. And one of the reasons why I personally like Le Mans is because it's a circuit where back markers don't get in your way. It's so wide, there are so many opportunities to get past back markers compared to, for example, when we were at the Nürburgring, which is a much tighter circuit. The only spot where it's difficult is if you catch a car going into the Porsche curves, and that's where this is the only real opportunity you have to learn the bravery to overtake someone around the outside.
Yeah, very true. Let's have a look at the timings as we are now an hour and 27 minutes and 40 seconds towards the end of the session. Nello Pastorino, number 65, Satellite Racing, leading the way in DPI.
Oh, we've got Team Radio in.
Musto GD Sports, number 53. Let's have a listen.
I don't think we've got anything. For a second, I was tempted to break into Italian and pretend like it was a Musto guys. But...
yeah, but then the graph, you know, like... underneath.
To be honest, if they said this was VRS Satellite Racing Paul Yahanen, I'd believe it.
Well, as long as you'd hear him speak, but would you understand him?
No, because it's Paul Yahanen, he doesn't talk.
Yeah,
that's what I was going for. Yeah. Anyway.
Yep. Moving on. LMP2, Matt Webb from E-Team Britain, the number 68, Erika leads the way, still on a 3-minute 27.8. Pedro Ramada, second. Carlos Busta in the... well, it's quite funny, though. 8 drivers have set a time... well, 7 of them have set a time in this session. Matt Webb. Then it's a trio of Ramada cars. So Pedro Ramada, Carlos Busta, and George Manusakis. And then we got... Vargasim Racing are on the timing sheets.
That's what we like to see. So are they sandbagging? Is the question.
If they were in IMSA, they would be bots, guaranteed, if that was happening. You know, the Rolex Daytona 24 is known for teams to be penalised if they've been sandbagging. It's happened in years past.
It's such a hard thing to determine as well and say... whether a team has been or hasn't been as well.
Well, Marcel Shinchik is one of their powerhouses. I mean, when you get
Marcel
him behind the wheel.
Yuri Tolman.
Yeah, I know. You don't really need to say any more. As soon as you start mentioning those two names, they've been... Oh, I've just seen a spin. Now, that was one of the Musto cars, and that was coming through the exit of the Porsche curves.
It's not the 53 because
It's-
I'm taking a look at them, so it has to be the B team.
Yeah. As
So-
Pauli Ahonen just literally launches the car over the curbs through the final chicane, past the Ford chicane. It went a bit Knight Rider style, 2 wheels up in the air on the right-hand side. And, yeah, I mean, Nick Newcomb's, his best effort is a 3-minute 30.0. Bradley Brocky's 3-minute 31.1. Joao Barbosa in the number 16 Juices Motorsport Club car hasn't set a lap time. I've been noticing that through certain corners, especially the heavy braking zones, going through into Arnage, Indianapolis, where you're really pushing the car. We saw with Michael Tyler that the back end was very, very twitchy indeed. That they're pulling like 2.3, 2.5 times the force of gravity. They're not feeling it in terms of the real feeling of being in an actual...
Maybe one of them has a motion rig for all you know.
Or, well, I have heard, I mean, you remember when Robert Wickens, who used to race in DTM, then ended up in IndyCar, had that massive crash that caused so much difficulty for him. Well, he was racing with Jimmy Broadbent in in one of the cars, I think in an endurance event, I can't remember which one. And he had to pit because for some reason his force feedback was at 100%.
Okay.
Ouch. But that just goes to show that things can happen outside of your control. But Pauli Ahonen, he's driving that Corvette like he's stealing it at the moment.
Yeah, I remember when there was a bit of a challenge going on YouTube. I think it was Jimmy Broadbent who pretty much started it, where they'd get their sim racing wheels and they'd turn the force feedback up to the absolute maximum, and they'd go around, I believe it was Sebring, because Sebring and its bumps are rather notorious, and just see how they get on. And they weren't having fun. Their entire arms was just the entire way on a lap. So I don't think any of the drivers here at the Endurance Racing World Championship have their force feedback set quite that high, but I personally like my force feedback nice and high. I like to feel like I'm getting a good workout while in a stint.
Yeah. So, Jimmy Nisula is running in that car as well. So, I think, we've got just over, an hour and 20 minutes to go. Track temperature stays stable. Air temperatures drop to a degree in the process. This is going to give the teams a lot of opportunity on dry running here at Le Mans. But if there's a possibility, I'm sure there might be, that the weather might be inclemental, to say the very least, that might help the teams dial in the cars to maybe have that 50-50 mix on a dry or a wet setup, so if the conditions get going. But really, with that being said, we're going to go to a brief commercial break here on GTR24H. Back in a couple of moments.
Round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H EEW season, Le Mans, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Azatec, Global Flix, Film Vault, ESTV, and Motorvision.tv.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 in webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Le Mans, le Circuit de la Sarthe, based in Pays de la Loire in France, a fantastic 13.626 kilometre circuit that has seen the best of the very best, not just in real life, but also sim racing, go to the battleground. A big thank you, as always, to our commercial partners and backers, the likes of Viper Gaming by Patriot, Noco, the No Carbs company, Azatec, Global Flix, Film Vault Limited, Esports Television, Motorvision.tv, so a very good evening to our viewers over in Germany. Sten Goldman referenced the fantastic Eton shirts that have been ultra comfortable all the way through. Alex Goldschmidt joined once again by my Scottish partner in crime, Mr. David Christie. David, there's been some thrills and spills in this open practice session, have there?
As in, you wouldn't have thought that it's an open practice session. You would have thought that it was some sort of actual competition that was going on. But yeah, look, this is an important time for the drivers, because not only is it a chance for them to get to grips with the cars, but it's a chance for them to get to grips with their teammates as well, and with the other competitors.
Yes. Ricoya crossing the line. Currently P3 in GT3 in terms of the timings, and we now have Simon. Oh, that was off at the first corner. You remember when the Glickenhaus hit the back of the number 8 car going into the first couple of corners? And that was the 708 Glickenhaus that lost its front right cluster. Light cluster.
Yeah, that just completely at random as well. Unprovoked attack almost.
Yeah, but it's been very interesting. I mean, Yusuf and I, in the previous half hour, were talking about the fact of how everyone has gotten out of the other side of what's been happening over the last 18 months. And I know we're going to be talking a lot about this, but it's just so good to really... We feel at home here, don't we?
We really do, and it's a very different atmosphere. So for me personally, this is the first sim racing event I've done in person.
Yeah.
Completely, because obviously my sim racing commentary career, like many others, and I think like Yusuf was saying himself, over lockdown was really where it came to the forefront, and for the most part it's been remote. So to actually be in a studio with other people, obviously it's fantastic to be back with yourself, Alex, but in general, this is a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere. But like I was saying as well earlier, I was thinking back to my experience in days of LAN parties and going out and you're meeting hundreds and hundreds of people. I am so excited for that next year. That is going to be like an experience like nothing else, and it's brilliant that we can do this. But this is just a mere taster for next year.
This is the tip of the iceberg, mate, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, let's have a look at some of the cars. I mean, first of all, let's have a look at the Cadillac DPI. I'm actually with Team Rookie Monsters at the moment. Taylor Lane, we're on board with at the minute, coming through. Look at the way he's absolutely manhandling that car through the Ford chicane, through the final one here as well. I mean, this car, has development through Cosworth. It was detuned after its initial foray into the IMS WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Produces around about 550. Oh! That is a snap and a half, and I think there was a little bit of a touch from the LMP2 car behind.
Well, that is quite fortuitous for us to be able to actually see that happen, because obviously that is quite a common part of the racetrack. Just before they get to Tetra Rouge, that was actually Chappelle where that actually happened. And again, you're having to watch on every part of the track. That actually happened, I think, as they were trying to navigate past that LMP2 car, missed their braking point and just go straight off. And you're going to see that an awful lot over the next week.
I think also, Yusuf and I talked about a very, very good point, that the teams in these open practice sessions are able to have multiple duplicates of the same car running on the track at the same time. And I think really that's going to help with the data analysis, how the car evolves. They'll be doing qualifying runs, they'll be doing full runs, including a full tank of fuel, a fresh set of tyres on it, and they're going to see how that car operates through a particular window once they've got the tyres up to temperature. And as the fuel literally gets combusted by that fantastic engine that's in the back end of this car, how they really have to put their strategies on point for this race.
100%. I couldn't have said it any better myself. And the other thing as well, Alex, to remember is that gone are the days, and we've spoken about this quite a few times on various other broadcasts, gone are the days where drivers would just turn up and take part in the race. Now they've got to be so much more. They've got to be, they've got to be their own physical coach. They've got to be their own mental coach. They've got to be, able to analyse the data from the telemetry that comes out, make suggestions in terms of how the car's handling, how the car's feeling. So in many ways, they share a lot in common with real life drivers in the responsibilities that they actually have to take.
Right, I've got a question for Team Rookie Monsters. Have you seen the inside of the end plates of the wing?
Who is that?
I've got absolutely no idea, but this is what I like about sim racing. You find these little nuances and that's, it looks like it's a bit sort of see-through, and Yusuf is already out vlogging again.
What are we on now with Yusuf's vlog? Just now, episode
I don't really know. I've got absolutely no idea. I know that my vlog at the moment has run up to about 8 minutes.
I got completely waylaid from that conversation because I'm watching Taylor Lane and what can only be described as an absolute gaggle of cars coming through the final chicane.
And that's Simon Marshall and Henrik Hoyer that have just been collected inadvertently. Oh my goodness.
That is wow.
Let's have a look at the replay here. It's in for a penny, in for a pound. It's more than nearly half a baker's dozen going in there. Oh, that was a T-bone, wasn't it?
That is that's going to be a trip to the physio in the morning after that one, if that was
a virtual one of that.
Yeah, in real life. But look, these things happen, and difficult as it is to believe, that's actually still valuable data for the drivers, because while they don't want to experience that sort of thing, it allows them to know exactly how much punishment these cars can take, where it's common for accidents to happen, where it's common for the cars to take damage, and how they can act with that damage.
Well, in the meantime, Joao Barbosa from Juice's Motorsport Club has just gone within a tenth of a half of Matt Webb in LMP2, and Pastorino's just coming through Tetra Rouge as we speak, heading down this iconic Mulsanne Straight, which at one point didn't have the Hunaudière, the two chicanes at all. Completely flat out, full chat. But, I'm looking at the speeds. Pedro Romano's done like 330 in the 57. Joao Barbosa 328 kph. Matt Webb 329. Carlos Basto 329. 328 from Manosakis. Newcomb 328. Brady Brockes 327 kph. And Sandro Ballesteros is also out on circuit in the other duplicate 68 Team Brit. E-Team Brit car, and he's put in a best lap of a 3-minute 34.537. I'm really interested in to find out how everything's going to start to fall into place for the teams, but also when they've had the opportunity to gather that data, they're going to really sort of go through it with the fine-tooth comb, aren't they?
They absolutely are, and again, that just alludes to something that was just mentioned previously about the amount of different hats that these drivers have got, and the telemetry is such an important part of these race weeks. So normally with sim racing and championships, to be honest, most drivers will maybe...
Right. Team radio might be coming from DIS as we ride on board with the number 45.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting anything on that.
No. Also, as part of GTR24H, we do have the wonderful radio broadcasts that do happen as well. So for those people that aren't able to watch the action, you can actually listen to it from your tablet, your laptop, your mobile phone. And as long as you've got a very good, strong data connection, you'll hear from behind the scenes from us on the odd occasion, but maybe you might be able to hear from some of the team radio.
Yeah, fantastic chance for getting yourself a little bit more immersed with all of the action, as if it wasn't enough to listen to our sultry voices, Alex.
Our dulcet tones.
Yeah, exactly. It really, you get to go behind the scenes. You get best of both worlds, basically. You get to listen to all of the important commentary, and you get to hear all the behind the scenes calls from the radio. And while it's a little bit quiet on the old walkie-talkies tonight, it will be absolutely manic, and some very crucial information is going to be passed along. Now, I would say this year you're going to hear a lot more on the team radio than you will perhaps maybe next year at LAN, where messages can be conveyed in person and teams can go for a little debrief and things like that. But this year it's all remote, so all of the drivers are going to be communicating with each other.
Look at the commitment from the 45 DIS Sim Racing Lab Porsche 991 RSR, flinging it through the Porsche curves at 225 kph. That's around about 140 miles an hour. And there we go, picture in picture. Carlos Basto, left-hand side, Romano Motorsport, and Matt Webb from E-Team Brit. What I love about the fact of LMP2, I think in some respects it's a very competitive category, but it's also, in some respects, David, very underrated.
It really is, and it feeds into the whole ecosystem of the different classes, doesn't it? Because obviously we all have their own preference. Personally, I have always been a GT3 kind of guy myself. I've always had a big fondness for the GT3s. That was until the first time I got behind the wheel, virtually, obviously, of an LMP2 car. And that changed everything for me. So you see Andy Kurtzen here. That is a look and a half. And talking of looks and a half, I know obviously we've kind of muted our webcam for a little bit to let you guys at home focus on the racing, and that's a good thing, because what we just saw, I've got to be honest, I'm going to need some therapy. Yusuf in the window is trying to distract us, consummate professionals here at GTR24H, and the wonderful work that me and you are doing, Alex. And it's going to take more than that, really. What might put me off, though, is this beautiful view of Andy Kurtzen's car. That is a glorious view on that Porsche, and again, something we haven't really spoken about through the season, the amazing work that goes into these liveries.
As you can see on your screens, a lovely shot of the start-finish straight here at Le Mans. A nice, what we would call in the automotive industry, if you like taking a shot for a used car advert, that's what we call the money shot, the three-quarter shot, where you get a lovely showcase of the front of the car and a fantastic angle down the side. It really does showcase some of the liveries that we do have on display here at GTR24H, as I'm currently running on board with the Glam Racing 404 car, which is making its way. Jeffelainen is behind the wheel, and that's one of the other cars. The Doppelganger is just up ahead, and we've got it now here with now, let's have a look at how much you can pick up the toe, courtesy of Simon Marshall. Oh, look, the side drive comes into play at 300 kilometers an hour.
Oh, this is starting to get a little bit tight for my liking. This
I know.
Proper,
and they are side by side going through into Indianapolis. That is crazy. And threading the eye of the needle. Was that Taylor Lane up the inside? I'm sure that was.
Yeah, it really, really was. And look, Alex, that is absolutely on a postcard what you can expect this week. You need to come back on Saturday and Sunday to see 24 hours of that, of these incredible drivers going toe-to-toe with each other and basically knocking 7 bells out of each other on the racetrack, and then having a good laugh about it afterwards.
Look at this. This is through the Porsche curves. Oh, mamma mia.
This is still open practice, yeah? This isn't...
Has anyone got the defib on standby?
We're going to be an absolute wreck by the end of this week if this is how it goes on.
We've still got to go twice around the clock, buddy, haven't we? However, top of the timesheets, it's now Robert Paul in the number 15 Juices Motorsport Club LMP2 car, 3 minutes 25.242, and that is over 4/10 quicker than Satellite Racing's DPI number 65, with Nello Pastorino behind the wheel. Getting rather interesting as we are fast approaching the final hour here at Le Mans of the first of 2 open practice sessions. The next one will take place at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I think, really, with regards to it, it's going to be that final time just to tune everything in, get everything shipshape Bristol fashion, cross the T's, dot the I's, leave no stone unturned. These teams are giving it everything, even in the open practice session, David.
They are, and I've got to be honest, given that this is the first time I've been able to watch one of these race week fully in its entirety and join on in the early practice sessions. I mean, let's not forget, this is like pre-practice almost. This is the warm up to the official practice session tomorrow, and then you've still got drivers who are really, really pushing it, and it's just absolutely staggering. What I want to ask, Alex, is actually, do you think that there's a certain level of mind games that goes on in these early types of practice where, you know, drivers are basically trying to maybe rough up in a certain way some of their competitors and maybe get a little bit of a one-upsmanship on them?
I think this is where the mind games really start to come to the fore. You know, the teams, they're going to, I wouldn't say they're going to be sandbagging. There's always going to be in practice, you're not going to show all your cards in one fell swoop. You're going to wait until that time when you know that is the opportunity that you need. And it might come at a split second. It might come through an evolution of strategy. Have there been any pitfalls for any of the other teams that are racing in the same class? We don't know. We'll find that out as we go along. But yeah, I think the mind games are already starting, and there's been... Oh, Simon Marshall has just gone off the track just behind...
Good save, though. That was
well
quite
held,
rare.
Simon Marshall. That was heading through. Just have a look. Now, this is going to be going into Mulsanne and then into the... Well, it's going into Indianapolis, right? So through the left. And, yeah, Simon Marshall lost the back end out through Indianapolis. And now Taylor Lane is just threading the eye of the needle between the two Glam Racing cars out on circuit at the moment. Yeah, I think the mental psyche of... Taylor Lane just held it like a good one going through that part of the circuit, and that was heading through Corvette and heading into Maison Blanche. You can see how twitchy... Oh, he's just walloped the sausage curbs, and the back end has just stepped out. And I've just seen Simon Marshall has just had his own moment as well.
I'm just looking at that last lap from Taylor Lane there, 3:26.7, despite looking ragged as anything. But this was what I want to bring up, actually. Matt Webb, I can't believe that. The LMP2 class, 18 Brits, second fastest. That is a brilliant turn up for the books there at 3:27.8. They'll be hoping that they can keep that pace going on to the rest of the week.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we might be able to collar Max Spooner, the team manager, into the official press conference for our first official free practice session. And the two Ramada Motorsport twins going side by side into Indianapolis. You know, we've had some really good chats with some of the team bosses, some of the drivers as well, all the way through the course of the season. I think one of the things that has stood out for me was the fact that Adam Surej, we didn't go chasing him for an interview. He came to us, and that really shows that now the teams, you know, as I said, we're the conduit. We're telling the story. But they're the bigger part of it. They're the stars.
They absolutely are, and it actually brings up a good point that I was away to bring up earlier and I completely forgot about, was this brand new press conference that we're doing here at GTR24H, and it's a bit of a personal bugbear of mine that obviously in my real life day-to-day job I work with drivers in terms of marketing and branding themselves, and that includes sim racers as well. And one of the things that I never see them doing is, we see Carlo Pasto getting the final chicane, all sorts of wrong there. But one of the things that we don't see drivers doing and we don't see teams doing is treating themselves as professionally as they should in terms of how they brand themselves and how they push themselves across. And I think that doing this idea of the podcast and increasing the interviews and really helping them get the name and the awareness out of them by doing things like these press conferences is a huge thing, Alex, because there's a lot of backing behind these teams. A lot of these drivers, this is a professional outfit. They've got full-time sponsors behind some of these teams, and the first thing and last things out of their mouths should be their sponsors' names.
Return on investment.
Exactly, and we don't see that. So I think that us doing that and doing these press conferences gives them a chance, and it gives a way for fans to interact that they've really not actually had before.
Yeah, very much the case. We're 56 and a half minutes away from concluding this first of 2 open practice sessions here for round 6 of the 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship for GTR24H. It's twice around the clock here at Le Mans. I'm really looking forward to it, mate. I really, really am.
Yeah, it is going to be absolutely fantastic. And look, if this practice session over the past couple of hours has absolutely flown by, which it has, we're both wired to the moon thanks to the awesomeness of our drinks from Nocco, from the no carbs company, Nocco.dk. I can't imagine what the rest of this week is going to be like. It is such an exciting place to be. At such an early stage of the week as well, because all the cards are now starting to fall into place, and all their, this is like a 4D game of chess, and now we're just starting to see the first moves being made.
Indeed. So for those wondering about the schedule over the course of this week, we've got open practice 10 a.m. tomorrow morning to 7 p.m. Central European Summer Time. Then we have the official first free practice of the event. That'll be tomorrow night from 8 p.m. 8:30 will be the official press conference. Official practice 2, 29th of October, 10 till 3. Qualifying 6 p.m. for qualifying 1. Qualifying 2, 9:30 p.m. and the race gets underway at 3 p.m. on the 30th. With that in mind, we're going to go to a brief commercial break.
Round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H EEW season, Le Mans, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Azatec, Global Flix, Film Vault, ESTV, and Motorvision.tv.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
So just under 52 minutes to go here for the first of 2 open practice sessions for the 2021 season finale for the Endurance E-Racing World Championship here live on GTR24H.org. My name's Alex Goldschmidt, David Christie back with me for another half an hour. Once again, we have to say thank you to Viper Gaming by Patriot, Nocco, the no carbs company at nocco.dk, Azatec, Global Flix, Film Vault Limited, Esports Television, Motovision do TV, that's the official German pronunciation. Sten Goldman referenced these wonderful Eton shirts. Comfortable, high quality, and I feel really snug in this.
That's just the extra pizza we had this afternoon.
Oh, shut up, you tart.
It's a bit cosy now, isn't it?
It is.
It was fitting fine earlier on. And
we're getting the OK sign from our good friend Yusuf, who's in Broadcast HQ. We've had a little bit of a moment for Azatec, who have just gone off the circuit. And I think that was coming into the Porsche cars, but on your screens you can see João Barbosa wrestling with the back end of the car through the Renault Diao. And you can see the Azatec Sim Sports car back underway, the Audi clipping the grass as it does so, kicking up the dust. The Audi R8 LMS Evo, this is the 2019 version. Now, Valdemar Eriksson has got genuine real-life experience in this car with Team WRT, amongst others. Vincent Voss, a powerhouse in sports car championship racing, but also they won in Le Mans this year, and they had 2 cars. First attempt, they win it. I mean, that was really a fairy tale story, despite what happened to the car that was leading it with a lap to go.
It is, but I've got to be honest, I absolutely hate the Audi. It's not a brand choice. It's specifically that car from personal experience in the Sims, and it seems to be on, say, like a Circuit Corsa competition, from R Factor 2, from iRacing. It is the most schizophrenic car I've ever driven. It'll play very, very nicely for about 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time just with no warning whatsoever. And we've seen this numerous times.
The Audi's just gone off through Tetra Rouge. Oh!
No,
I've just seen an LMP2 car.
Hang on, I need to see if we can. I'll queue up a replay on that one, but I don't understand why people enjoy. Let's see here, right? So this is my very poor beginner replay skills here. So obviously there's a little bit of netcode there. But again, it just goes onto the curbs, it moves round, and the oversteer is oh my goodness me, it almost gets wiped out by one of the cars in the background there.
Yeah.
But again, it's so unpredictable under those high pressure situations, and hard lines for the Aztec Sim Sport car. But again, valuable information of where on the track they can go and where they can't go.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of the cars that have just come through towards the back part, heading in towards Indianapolis. Actually, I'm with the Teleforing, and I must say, we get some really cool liveries here at GTR24H. The 188, Michael Castle behind the wheel. Look at that. I mean, look at that for attention to detail, right?
That is glorious. That really is. And it's difficult because having known what goes into to making paints, and I'm going to let the viewers at home into a little secret here. I've got the design skills of a 5-year-old with Crayola when trying to paint car skins.
Yeah.
And it is just fantastic to see the level of detail there.
Yeah, very much the case. The DIS SR Lab car really managed to get through rather quickly, and that just goes to show with the closing speeds between GT and GT3, David, are another thing that we haven't really touched on that much. We've talked about the difference between LMP2, DPI, then it's GT and GT3. There isn't much between them, but you get a good run in a GTE, that car's switched on with those tyres, a GT3 is like mincemeat through the grinder.
It really is, and apologies about that. I was just trying to fix my my microphone there. The problem with the GTE cars is that they're kind of caught in no man's land, are they? They're miles faster than the GT3 cars, and they will get caught up in a heartbeat by the DPIs and the LMP2s. But I think, like you were saying, because of the closing speed on the GT3 cars, I think they're going to have a very, very difficult weekend this weekend. They're going to have a lot to do. They've got to be very aware of the traffic around them, both, from cars past them and from cars they're passing.
Oh.
Yeah, they're going to be in for a fun time.
I'm going to cut across you.
Yeah, go for it.
Because Taylor Lane has just gone quickest. 3 minutes, 25.082. Top recorded speed of the session. Wait for it, 344 kph.
That's...
Yeah, and he's pushing. Absolutely flying through the Porsche curves is Taylor Lane in the 555 from Team Rookie Monsters. That car is on rails, isn't it?
It really is, and it makes you wonder, maybe that's the way that car has to be driven to get the most out of it. Taylor Lane, that is an outstanding lap there, 325.0, and then Simon Marshall second place, and then you've got Christos Sekunas for the Team Rookie Monsters, and Simon Marshall just leaving pit lane just now. But again, going back to the idea of one-upsmanship and the mind games, getting yourself to the top of that table, Alex, that is a good start to the week.
You know what? I think we could possibly have an LMP2 car that could, if things work their way, be the overall winner at the end of this. Look at the lap from Robert Pawn. That is ridiculous. 3 minutes 25.176. That's less than a tenth slower than Taylor Lane.
But look at João Barbosa as well for LMP2, 327.1. I mean, that's 2/100ths of a second off of Robert Pawn. That's two LMP2 cars.
Yeah, that's 2 seconds.
Yeah, that is... I mean, there's nothing between that. It swings the odds. You could very well be right. LMP2 could be taking the win.
Jose Berenguer from World of Sim Racing, iZone Performance in the number 51 Porsche. Quickest in GTE, 3 minutes 50.185, ahead of Andy Kirsten, 3 minute 51.176. Fabio Liozzi from the number 53 Musto GD Esports. Musto looking to become a 2-time championship winner. Parli Ahonen and Giordano Valeriano ran out the top 5. Well, 5 cars have registered and 5 drivers have registered a lap time. Azatec Sim Sports lead the way, surprisingly, in the 585 Audi. Look at that. Quad picture in picture, folks. All for, well, actually, LMP2, top right. DPI, and then we got 2 GT3s at the bottom, 43 minutes and 40 still to go. Azatec Sim Sports leading the way in this open practice session with the 3 minute 57.793. I'm wondering if that's Valdemar Eriksson that has set that lap time, because he has real experience with that car. He knows it like the back of his hand, and that can translate pretty well from real life to sim racing, can't it, David?
It absolutely can, from personal experience. It's scary now, the level that we're at between sim racing and real life racing. There will likely always be some differences, some very small, minute differences, and some of the older generation give you the line about, oh, well, you can't feel the forces and it's not the true feeling, and I'm sorry, that doesn't cut it anymore. It really doesn't cut it anymore. If anything, my argument is always this: with sim racing now, you can get 80% of the experience of racing for about 5% of the cost.
Yeah, just goes to show how a lot of drivers that have gone through the ranks in real life racing, like through karting, lower Formula single seaters, and then end up having to go to this. And one of the biggest things is people are being paid as professionals to race in sim racing. You would not think that was possible, maybe say 5 years ago.
And it's a strange place to be, and again, we've spoken about this on at length, and even to the point now where drivers and their teams have got full-time itineraries for the different championships that they take part in, and as you said, they are paid, and paid handsomely, for their esports careers. And this is the new world, folks, and it's only going to get even bigger. And, you know, here we are at GTR24H proving that with the fact that, you know, we've got one of our biggest grids for the Le Mans. It's a fantastic event.
Now, bearing in mind that not everyone will have had an opportunity to be in this session. I'm actually with Callum Wilson at the moment in the 404. There's actually, speaking of doppelgangers, there's a quartet of glam racing 404 cars, and what's more, most of them are out on track, and I think, yeah, there you go, that's Lee Russell on your screens, ladies and gentlemen, currently P6 showing on the times. According to our live timing.gtr24h.org. Don't forget to follow us on all the relevant social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can head to GTR24h.org, our official website. We are finding our way into the last 40.5 minutes. Yellow out in Sector 3. Not too sure who that is at the moment. I'm just going to have a quick little scan if I can. Well, there's Joao Barbosa. Okay, there's Taylor Lane in the 555 Team Rookie Monsters car. Just spotted the Ramada Motorsports. There's two of them going through the final chicane across the start-finish line. And Henrik Hoyer's out there. I don't really know who brought out that yellow, but I mean, we're now going to see Slipstream GT3 style. It's just wonderful seeing cars like the Aston Martin, that 4-litre twin-turbo V8 powering the rear wheels. I mean, Aston Martin steeped in Le Mans history in its own right, and a fantastic brand to be represented here at round 6 of the championship.
It really, really is, as we see some of the highlights from the past hour up in the picture-in-picture. Now, I mean, talking about doppelgangers, Alex, this is quite the turn-up that we've got. I've got a feeling that actually that might be two of exactly the same car.
It is,
on track.
yeah,
so
same car.
There's an interesting little nuance to sim racing that you don't get in real life racing. As Henrik Holland gets it all wrong out at the final chicane, around and around and around the corner, and unfortunately he can't spare his blushes because we got all that on candid camera. That's a little bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Unfortunately, he doesn't get the £250 from you being framed.
Well, we'll see if we can get Harry Hill on the phone, though.
Yeah. Highlights from the last hour, Taylor Lane having that absolute code brown and a half. And then this has been the biggest moment we've had. They all go steamrolling in. Taylor Lane gets collected by Simon Marshall, and then one of the glam racing Aston Martins also ends up in the mix and then hits the escape button, goes back to the garage.
Yeah, that's a big F in chat for that one. Goodness me, that's
the
like
first time I've heard that on the broadcast so far this weekend.
It's not going to be the last, trust me, it's going to be a long week. But this was epic as well, side by side, going through the second half of the circuit here, and eventually having to pull out as they went into Indianapolis. In fact, if I remember rightly, there was contact between the two cars here, and it was a little bit of what we call in the term a boop. But got away with it, and it's been fantastic. In fact, I'm watching on the other screen here from the rear view of Carlos Basto here, and this is fascinating just to watch how in sync these two cars are, towing each other around and potentially getting the fast lap times.
Yeah, I'm on board with one of the BMWs, Valeriano, behind it with the number 54 car in GTE, and Munich's big beast braking from about 290 kilometers an hour down into third gear, now applying the power, and as Valeriano's trying to put down the power, the back end's switching again. It just goes to show how hard these drivers are really, really pushing. I mean, they are leaving it absolutely on the limit.
Practice, and we're going to put that in air quotes, practice.
But again, and that's not going to be the last time on that one.
No, exactly. You've got to hustle these cars. That's the only way you can drive them fast around this circuit. You have to hustle them hard. You have to push them and really drive them beyond the limits of what you would consider possible. Indeed.
And one of the good things about looking inside the cockpit, David, is you actually get an understanding of what the driver actually does see. And a good thing about this is that instead of a traditional rear view mirror that we would see in a normal production car, the camera, it's part and parcel of GTE racing that you see them all the time, because the driver doesn't want to have to look up. And you know, when you've got that pretty much bare metal roll cage around it, you know, you haven't got anywhere to stick a rear view mirror. You've got to improvise, and the way that technology has evolved, you're now seeing rear view cameras being a prominent part of GTE racing, and the drivers do rely heavily on it.
They do, and it's a strange thing as well, because obviously we see it in the picture-in-picture from Giordano Valeriano, just on that right-hand side there, and we can just make out as well the threat detection system that's built into it, and that's a fascinating bit of technology as well, because we often go on about video games imitating real life. Well, you know, it's kind of also the other way about, because back in the early days of the likes of Forza, you would have you would have this sort of radar that would be around the car, and it would detect where they are. Well, that's pretty much exactly what you see on that right hand side. Now you see a green arrow, and that is where the car doesn't detect any other cars in its sight. It's saying that it's safe. But what you'll find is that when a car comes into vision on that rear view mirror, it'll actually turn yellow and point out where the car is and track it.
Valeriano's spun it.
Well, the threat detection system didn't detect that, did it?
Otherwise, it would have been red.
Technology can only go so far.
Absolute red on that one.
That's yeah. Actually, that's a good point, because obviously a lot of these teams and a lot of these drivers are making on-the-fly changes in terms of ABS and the tyre setups and traction control as well. And again, despite it looking embarrassing, it's just practice. They've not lost anything, and they can maybe decide, well, actually, I can't dial that ABS back a bit on that corner. I have to keep it up for that bit there.
Oh, the 404. That was one of them. Lee Russell has just had a massive moment. And that was down the main back straight through the, looks to be the first Hunaudière. Absolutely lost the back end of it. Yeah. I think Lee's a bit shaken after that one. Just calming himself, composing himself, getting back into the rhythm, getting back up to speed. As we're fast approaching the last half an hour of this first open practice session of round 6 of the 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship here at Le Mans for GTR24H.org. And David, before we go to a commercial break, these drivers are really giving us a bit of a taster, an aperitif of what's to come.
Yeah, they really, really are. And unfortunately, I'm a way to ruin Lee Russell's blushes, because I've actually got a replay of him and that moment. So let's enjoy this one then, because he's already sideways into the corner there. Very easy mistake to make, though, and remarkably actually drama-free. And the whole, if that was to happen during the race, you wouldn't even blink, because he would lose 2 seconds during the lap, and he'd get going. Doesn't cause any damage from the looks of it by hitting any railings or anything like that. Spares his blushes, and just gets on with it.
Well, his modesty was not saved on that one. Well caught, Mr. Christie.
Well, there you go.
Well, with that in mind, we're going to go to another commercial break here on GTR24H. Back in a few moments.
Round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H EEW season, Le Mans, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Azatec, Global Flicks, Film Vault, ESTV, and Motorvision.tv.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals, and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor, or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
So we're back for just under the last half an hour, this first open practice session of the sixth and final exciting round of the 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship here live on GTR24H. Alex Goldschmidt and David Christie back with you, and we have to say once again a big thank you to all our partners: Viper Gaming by Patriot, Nocco, the No Carbs Company, Nocco.dk, Azatec, Global Flicks, Film Vault Limited, Esports Television, Motorvision.tv, and Sten Goldman for these lovely, fantastic Eton shirts that seem to be incredibly comfortable the more that you wear them as well, David, wouldn't you agree?
I would. Look, we've mentioned them quite a few times, and I really can't overstate how amazing these things are. Yeah, you're still not getting them back. It's firmly in the luggage after we go back. But I'm just watching Carlos Basto here for Ramada Motorsport, and Alex, remind me, these are teammates, aren't they? Because this is starting to scare me a little bit.
There's three of them. There's three of them on the same bit of road at the moment, making their way down the Mulsanne. This circuit originally started back in 1923, so 2023 means it's Le Mans centenary.
Oh, 100 years old?
It's nearly as old as Monza.
I thought you were going to say nearly as old as me.
I'm cruel, but I'm not that cruel.
Right, this is a view that is set up on Nick Newcomb's machine at the moment in LMP2, just to give you an idea of the speed right now as he's coming into that first chicane. It's just breakneck speed, and even from that front splitter cam you can see the oversteer that the car's got as the rear end just lifts off, and he has to add the tiniest bit of correction here, but it's down the second part of the Mulsanne straight straight here going down in towards the second chicane. It's such a high speed part of the track. This is where you can make and break all of your time on the circuit, and it all starts there from Tetra Rouge, from that corner earlier on, but then through that second chicane. Again, really important to get a good exit from there, as high speed an exit as you possibly can, then through the right-hander. And this is the run down to Mulsanne corner. Again, a double attack corner where you've got that gentle right-hander. When you're learning Le Mans, very, very easy to get on the brakes too early and lose too much speed through the hairpin there.
Nick Newcomb, look at the limit of adhesion he was on. He was pushing nearly 310 kph going to Arnage.
And that's the great thing about these LMP2 cars, is that you can really just throw them into the cars, into the corner. Instead, he's just decided to throw it into pit lane. So, well, there we go.
Exit stage right. Exit stage right.
And you know, as if I planned it, we'll just cut to George Manasakis instead for Romanda Motorsport. This is a great thing as well, and this is another thing. I wonder if this is what they're practicing, driving in teams. They're driving behind each other just to get an idea of what it's like to be in traffic.
Yeah, it's going to give that sort of simulation feel. And when you've got 2 or 3 cars of the same manufacturer, you know, Orica and Ligier, 2 powerhouses in LMP2 folklore, in multiple different championships, it does really give you an indication. But we saw with the 2 Team Rookie Monster 555 cars, you know, the side draft is just as important than the Mulsanne as is the normal toe, because we've seen it before. I mean, I remember the side toe that Rob Huff got at the FIA WTCR event at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Like, literally, they were about half a door width apart. That side toe is just as important.
It absolutely is, and the thing is that it essentially all comes back from the exit of the corner before. It's so important to get yourself into that position, and as soon as you get that side toe, it just gives you that tiny little bit of extra boost, and it's all about that. Le Mans is all about marginal gains, so that tiny little bit, as inconsequential as it seems, can make all the difference in actually making or breaking, trying to get past another car here. But 25 minutes left to go in the practice session. I've not been disappointed, I'll be honest.
You know what, I've got a wonderful shot. Let's see if Peter Munkholm, our broadcast director, can pick this one up. There is you know when you get this really nice picturesque shot? How about that?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So that's the run down to the second chicane then.
Yeah. And you've got Valeriano coming through into shot in the 54 Musto BMW M8 GTE. Real shame that car really it's an underrated, it's an understated car. You know, BMW came all guns blazing with that vehicle. It was meant to, you know, they used the M6, which had the powertrain derived directly from the road-going vehicle. The M8 completely built for the racetrack in its own right. You know, one thing that I would love to see on R Factor 2? Imagine having the BMW M4 2022 GT3 car on the grid.
That would be amazing. But personally, I'm happy. You know, for me, the M8 is like the pinnacle of BMW GT racing. Mostly because it is such a big boy. You know, it is huge. I mean, I loved all the memes that we got about just how big that M8 is. Can you ever see Daytona and see the Porsches and the AMGs and not see a 50-foot BMW M8 in the background? It's just marvellous, marvellous stuff.
Over a 4.5 foot high Aston Martin. Well, speaking of Aston Martins, Callum Wilson, in the last few moments or so, has gone top of the timesheets in GT3 with a 3-minute 56.334, and that is 1.2 seconds ahead of Lee Russell, his teammate. Jeff Van Eynen as 3-minute 58.475. Henrik Hoyer, 4-minute 0.049. And Kuba is back. Jakub Kowalski, yet to set a lap time. So 4 of the 5 Glab Racing cars are out. Looks like Azatec SimSport have decided to local time on the session. I mean, it is getting rather late here in Central Europe, coming up to 20 to 12 local time. And can you think, really, I can't believe that I've been up since we've been at the hotel since 4:30 Central European summertime this morning.
Yeah.
And we are still bright-eyed, not necessarily bushy-tailed. We're still here. We're still going.
And it's not like we're sitting here going, oh, goodness me, it's so what? It's honestly, we're both absolutely buzzing with excitement for this. And I can't say the same for our colleague Yusuf, who is, I think he's a bit done, isn't he? Although, to be fair, he's a little bit younger than us. He's a little bit more, fresh-faced, and it takes him longer to recover.
I'm waiting for him to give you the 1,000-yard stare in a minute.
Yeah, going on to the 404 team, the Glam Racing team, and I just want to finish off a thought that I had earlier on, is the difference between sim racing and real racing is the fact that all 4 of their drivers here get in practice ahead of this weekend. Now, to do a similar affair, it wouldn't happen in real life because getting 4 cars on the track at the same time, that would cost you upwards of $2.5 million just to get them all out and on track. Whereas with sim racing, you get all the drivers out on track together, they can practice, they can get time behind the wheel, all sharing the same setup, all giving feedback, all giving their unique insight. It's a fantastic way to maximise that practice time. So I'm all in favour of this. And if it carries on into the official practice session, are we going to see 80 cars onto the grid at once? That is, it's going to be a full grid.
There's going to be some pomp and circumstance, that's definite. Now, interesting, we're going to delve a little bit more into Glam Racing, because we had a really, really wonderful article submitted by team manager Maria Rinhak. And we actually got some quotes from all of the drivers. And Henrik Hoyer, first of all, said, "Man, has this been a journey, this full active year for Glam Racing?" Now, that was something I didn't actually know coming into this final round of the championship for 2021. It's been filled with ups and downs, successes and disappointments, but as the year has progressed, so have the team, as well as the results. And Henrik likes the team. They work very well together. They've got more fun when the hard work's being done and dusted. As we head into the last 19 and a half minutes of the session, Jeff from the team goes, "I'm in it for the thrill of going too wide into a corner with a competitor, clean and on the limit without contact." That just personifies how competitive these drivers are. Callum Wilson, I had that brilliant interview with him quite recently. He said, I didn't race at Spa, and they had the best result of the season. He was sort of like putting himself, reading between the lines a little bit, that he felt like he might have been a bit of the unlucky charm. But he's actually a very good racer. When he's on it, Callum Wilson can give as good as he can get.
There's 2 things to say about that, and obviously, as much as we are consummate professionals and the guys and girls behind the wheel take this very seriously, they're still very, very fragile people, because obviously it's such a cutthroat level at the very bleeding edge here of esports here. You still kind of don't want to think, oh, well, I've not been in the team and they've just got the best result ever. How else are you going to take that? Of course you're going to think that it's absolutely not. It's just circumstance and it's just luck, the way that's rolled out. But you're going to take it that it's like, oh, well, it must be me then. But also that brings up a better point as well, because one of the things that we don't focus on is the chemistry of the teams. How important it is to have teams that work together, that gel together, that communicate really well with each other. And we also sometimes forget that this is a team event. And as much as we love the crazy driver swap season, it's so important that we find a team, and that's the team that overall the whole of the season is going to win this championship, is the one that works the best together.
Indeed. Time has really flown by tonight, David.
Yeah.
It really has. I mean, we've now got the Porsche meet and the Aston Martin sandwich. And that's the number 45 DIS Sim Racing Lab car there, hustling one of the Glam Racing cars, as the other two are going through the Porsche curves, line astern. Look at this for a flying formation.
This is
awesome.
a bit awesome, isn't it? I've put on the cockpit view of the Aston Martin just behind, and it is hustling down that Porsche. Although the two, the Aston Martin and the Porsche, are already starting to streak away. The Porsche deciding to have a little look up the inside, gets the move done, and yeah, job done. There we go. Lovely little scenic view there of the start-finish straight, and well, Henrik Kohler, well, at least he held on to that one this time, so
he did.
He's learned his lesson.
Yeah,
Practice session was worth it.
I think it's always going to be. Oh, right. Someone's just had a bit of a moment. I don't believe this. Going through under the Dunlop Bridge. Oh, two Astons side by side.
As you do.
As you do. 2x2, hurrah. You can tell that it's been a very long day. Now, hang on a second. I have just noticed another DPI car. Bradley Sellers in the 666 is out on track and has put the car P3, 3 minute 25.932.
That'll do the job. That's
we go.
And the thing is that's a fantastic thing, because if you look at that, that's just 0.4 of a second behind Martin Novak, his teammate. So essentially, it's the Team Rookie Monsters, the 555, that have set the fastest lap, and then the 666 as well. So yeah, there you go.
Yep, I'm going to ride in cockpit with Bradley Sellers at the moment. Through into the right-hander. Back end swings out of Arnage there. Or was that Mulsanne? You know what? One of the things that always confuses me, is it Mulsanne? Is it Arnage? I have to wait and see. He's absolutely wringing the neck of that thing.
I think for me, it makes it slightly easier, because before I'll even call it, I'll try and ID the entry, because obviously with Mulsanne you've got that tiny little right-hander first, and then with Arnage
which
you've got
now coming to.
The left-hander.
He's just come. So yeah, that was.
Yeah, so that's Indianapolis, and then down through into. Is this going to be Arnage here? Or am I I've just looked up now, and it's a completely different part of the racetrack, so we'll just ignore that, shall we?
He's going through the right. That was Mulsanne, so now heading into Indianapolis. Oh, just swings the car in, and David Christie has just put his hands to his forehead.
Alex, I swear to goodness me, these GT3s, they're side by side, and they're absolutely going toe-to-toe. It's Callum Wilson and Lee Russell. Thinks better of it. The Porsche had got past them, and that was Andy Kurtzen. But this is getting a bit scary for my liking. And yeah, that is going to be Lee Russell, who has a huge tail end sliding out there, as we're on board with both Martin Novak and watching Henrik Hoyer as well. But yeah, this is starting to get a bit sketchy now.
Yeah, with 13 minutes on the clock. Just wondering if there might be a little bit of tiredness setting in, or some have decided to have a bit of a refresh, come back, you know, have a bit of hydration, have a little snack, pick me up, and off you go again.
Quite possibly. I think, to be honest as well, with the final 12 minutes as well, someone will just be deciding to have a little bit of fun, as safely as they possibly can, as we see, or as I see rather, one of the Aston Martins going very, very wide, coming under the pressure of Andy Kurtzen for the DIS Sim Racing Lab. And this is an awesome little scrap that I've got going on here. And that's a huge moment for Callum Wilson out the final chicane. Spins round, sideways, gets going on again.
Andy Kirsten, you lucky little beggar.
How he didn't get wiped out, that was absolutely unbelievable. unbelievable. And yeah, I think at this point now they're just having a little bit of fun. But in picture in the bottom right there, you can see the 555 of Taylor Lane. He is looking so fast right now, coming through the final couple of chicanes. You can see again that car hustling itself. Let's see what Taylor can do out of the final chicane. The car has a little bit of a wiggle. He comes across the line. It's a 3:25.510, so still 5/10 out of his fastest time, Alex. But yeah, that was amazing. Bradley Sellers, actually, it's a hypercar 1-2-3 now, because Bradley, and it's changed again. Charles Barbosa now goes into second place again, 3:25.1. This is all going crazy with 15 minutes left to go.
11 and a half minutes on the clock. Taylor Lane leads the way overall. There's Bradley Sellers, second in DPI, and the gap is 86 thousandths between the pair. Between Taylor Lane and Joao Barbosa. Bradley Sellers, a further 16 thousandths adrift. That is 0.102 between the top three. If I'm honest with you here, David, with that pace from Juice's Motorsport, Nick Newcomb has basically said to the team, we need to get everything ready. Get all our weapons sharp, as Tom Christensen once said. And that pace from Joao Barbosa, I'm absolutely astounded by how quick that was. I mean, that's, you know, you look at it, and Carlos Buster is second in LMP2, 6th overall on a 3-minute 28 dead. And then we look at GTE, DIS, top of the timesheets, 3-minute 51.176. Giordano Vareliano from the number 54 Musto GT Esports BMW M8 has put in a 3-minute 53.137. We've got less than 10 minutes to go. Callum Wilson is... You know what's really funny? It is a Glam Racing 1, 2, 3, 4 at the moment, because everyone else in GT3, Unison Racing, Aztec Simsport, ID Simsport, have all decided probably to have a little bit more of a rest, maybe ahead of tomorrow, because official free practice is when we really get this weekend underway. But I mean, Joao Barbosa, that is... I was waiting for someone like Shinchik from Vargasim Racing, but Barbosa just comes in, and in the words of Michael Caine, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Well, he's blown the roof off Le Mans.
Yeah, he certainly is. As we get a recap of the timings here, Taylor Lane up there with the 3:25.082 for Team Rookie Monsters. Alex, look, I mean that there's coming back in style, and then there's what they have done tonight. That is frightening stuff. If you're in the hypercar class, then that is you put on notice with official free practice coming up tomorrow. Joao Barbosa, though, as you said, I mean, we cannot overstress how ridiculous that lap is. 3:25.168, and to give you the context on that, that LMP2 car lines up just behind Taylor Lane and ahead of 4 hypercars that are lined up second, third, fourth and fifth, that are then third, fourth, fifth and sixth on the grid. Unbelievable stuff.
Yep. Andy Kirsten leads the way in GTE. Well, there's only a couple of cars, the 45 DIS Sim Racing Lab Porsche 991 RSR, and Valeriano in the 54 Musto GT Esports BMW M8. That's GTE. GT3, Callum Wilson. What a lap from him. You know, coming back with a bang and showcasing the pace that Glam Racing really needs to bring to the table here this weekend for round 6, the final round of the 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship here live on GTR24H. Less than 7.5 minutes to go here at Circuit de la Sarthe in Pays de la Loire, Le Mans. And we go back to Taylor Lane, the driver that is top of the pops, top of the hill. and above everybody else. But to see the differential between the DPIs and the LMP2 is, again, we see a bit more side-by-side action, and this is from earlier on in the hour with Marshall and Lane going side-by-side. We also got a real good understanding of the team game that some drivers are using. So running multiple cars, David, on the same circuit, getting the slipstream, understanding the characteristics of the car. You know, they've got to really trim out the downforce on these cars to really maximize that balance between flat-out speed and also handling through the corners. Because if you get one little bit of an adjustment wrong, like say tyre pressure, if you're able to adjust the suspension, a little bit of brake maybe on the back to help the car be a little bit more compliant through the bumps or through certain parts of the circuit, as we see picture in picture. This is when Azatec went off at Tetra Rouge and into the barriers, and the rear wing gets literally thrown asunder, and then the LMP2 from Juice's Motorsport came through. I would hazard a guess, and that was probably Joao Barbosa that got a fright of a lifetime. And then we had the Glam Racing stable, everyone out on track, and then the Slipstream Fest. It was like no one wanted to give a quarter, no one wanted to take a mile, and it's been really good. It's really given the drivers an understanding, but we have had a few moments that drivers like there with Henrik Hoyer wanting to sort of forget, but they learn from that, and he was definitely a bit of a spinning top there coming out of the final chicane onto the start-finish straight, nearly got collected himself.
He absolutely was, and oh my goodness me, Taylor Lane with the monster of all tank slappers coming out of, I think that was through Porsche, wasn't it? Coming through down forward into the final couple of chicanes here. Again, just the way he's hustling that car over the curbs, he's throwing it about, goes across the line, and can't improve. 326.0. The other point that I want to bring up with you, and we kind of brushed over it very, very lightly, was with this being a team event, Alex, and having to work with other drivers, they have to compromise. They have to find a setup that works for all of the drivers.
Exactly.
Over the entire race, and unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be the on paper fastest setup that you can possibly do, because each driver has their own unique style, and if you can get a team that all works in the same way and they all like the same type of setup, that's brilliant, but it's very, very unlikely. So 9 times out of 10, compromises have to be made, but it's trying to find where that middle ground doesn't deviate as much as possible, so you can get all the drivers on the same page.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on Bradley Sellis, who's about to come through the forward chicane. 3 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Sellis is absolutely manhandling the sausage curbs. Oh, wheel into the gravel coming out of the final chicane. And that was, you know, even with that drama there, he was less than half a second off of his best lap time.
Absolutely amazing. Just seen Carlos Basto for Ramada Motorsport as well in that LMP2, doing a 328 flat and getting himself up into second place in LMP2. But Andy Kurtzen just behind them as well. So I'm surprised we don't see more of the LMP2s out there, but it looks like, from what I'm seeing, the LMP2s are actually sharing their car rather than having multiple of the same car out there on track.
I think you know, we're going to talk about this a little bit more now. You said about not having one particular setup for the cars. It is the ultimate compromise. You've got to have that setup that complements the driver's style, but also helps them to maintain that consistency over an extended period of time. And it also depends on how many hours the driver is going to be in the car. How many laps is the car going to do? Are you going to double stint the tyres? Are you maybe going to do a bit of a short fuel and undercut the opposition by maybe doing a shorter stint? There are so many different permutations that you have to factor in with regards to the drivers themselves. We talked about the mental and the physical exertion as we get another replay of that pirouette from Henrik Hoyer from Glam Racing. As we head into the last 2 minutes of the session, Open Practice 1, Open Practice 2 commences at 10 o'clock Central European Summertime tomorrow morning, and then we'll have our first of 2 official free practice sessions with, hopefully, a chat with some of the team managers ahead of qualifying, which is going to take place at 6 o'clock is when the first of 2 3-hour sessions, one during the daytime, one during the night. So we'll start at 6 o'clock Central European Summertime for qualifying 1. That'll finish at 9 o'clock. We then reset things, half an hour sort of break in between the 2, and then it'll be at night time. And whenever Super Pole happens at Le Mans, boy, is it glorious, David.
It really, really is. That's when all the sparks start to fly, because it's high pressure, isn't it? It's do or die. You have to make it happen, and you have to make it happen on that instant. So yeah, that is going to be absolutely huge to watch, and we should be a little bit closer to knowing, or to at least having an idea of how the cards are going to be laid out tomorrow after the open practice session as well. So it'll be very interesting to hear from some of the drivers potentially on what they make of the circuit.
Well, it's double points this time for the 6th and final round of the championship. 2 points for pole position in each class, as João Barbosa has just had a massive off in sector 3. The front end looking possibly a little bit second hand. That will
I think that crane behind is going to be getting used very, very shortly, to be honest with you.
2 points for pole position. A win normally in the standard 5 rounds, opening 5 rounds of the championship, is 25 points. It is 50 points for a victory. Titles are far from decided, and that is it. 0 on the clock. That's it for the practice session here at Circuit de la Sarthe. And I think really what we need to do now, we're going to go to a brief commercial break, and we'll have Yusuf back in the studio. We're going to have a little bit of a debrief here for Open Practice Free Practice 1 here at GTR24H for Round 6, 2021 EEWC at Le Mans.
Round 6 of the 2021 GTR24H EEW season, Le Mans, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Azatec, Global Flix, Film Vault, ESTV, and Motorvision.tv.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.